Hello,
Oh.
and welcome to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I am Matt.
And I'm Tommy, and tonight we're talking about prayer. What was
Ha!
it? What is it? Because, you've prayed, Matt, right?
I have.
If I've heard tell correct. What a coincidence. So have I. We apparently were like really into it for a while, too. Like, even
Yeah,
like
we were good
volunteered
at it.
on. Yeah. Yeah, just really got off on it. I mean, what?
No,
Anyway, so, yeah. I was just thinking about prayer today, and yeah, but we'll get into that in a little bit during our world famous first drink segment. Um, but speaking of which, what is your first drink this evening?
I'm drinking. This is all I got. So I'm drinking the Oak Brown Stone Fort Ale from
Mm,
Seventh Son again.
yeah,
It
Seven
is
Sun. That's
good.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tonight, so I recently got another IPA variety pack because that's just how I roll. This one was the Sierra Nevada Torpedo.
That's a good
So
one.
yeah, they're yeah. If people don't know Sierra Nevada, they made a Torpedo IPA several years ago because it was essentially their goal was how can we like get more hops into this like in as many different ways possible. So they basically like invented a mechanism they called the hop torpedo. I don't remember exactly how it works. All I know is it makes it like even hoppier in addition to everything else. So they had the Torpedo IPA, but this variety pack is like four different kinds of Torpedo IPA. It had like the
Oh,
original, they did a West Coast, a double, and then the one I'm drinking tonight is the Dank Torpedo
I didn't know.
IPA.
This must be new. I'll have to look into this.
Yeah. I mean, they had it at the Kroger, so you can find it there. But yeah, nice color. And I noticed as soon as I opened it, because a couple weeks ago I had a different dank IPA. I think it was actually, oh, it was also a Sierra Nevada. They're like dank little thing,
Yeah.
or their little things variety pack, and that was actually it was an alright IPA. I was just disappointed with the dankness, but this one, like as soon
Yeah.
as I cracked the bottle open, it's like whoa! It's like I just walked into uh, a distributor, but yeah, dispensary. That's the word. Yeah. So yeah, this one's quite a bit dankier. Mm. But still like a good amount of like sweetness in it as well to balance. Very, it's just like even this whole aside from the whole being dank or whatever, just a really good IPA. So highly
That's
recommend.
yeah. I think I'll get that. I think I'll have that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, here you go. No, doesn't work that way.
So
But yeah,
I got home from work and my hair was like all plastered from a hat, and I was tired of wearing a hat. I'm like, I don't want to wear a hat tonight. And so I like put some water in it. Now it's like done like crazy stuff on its own, and I still don't care. So so I
well,
didn't
good.
do this on purpose. If anybody's like, hey, he's got a lot of forehead right now. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's just I've got a lot of
Not as much
forehead.
as I do. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just all forehead up here anymore.
Yeah, you got
But
one
yeah,
in the back too, a little one. From
that
the cancer.
yeah, my little crater back there. What? Speaking of which, actually, yesterday was my 4-year anniversary of having the primary tumor removed from the back of my head.
Excellent.
So now the original scar was a bit smaller than they have there because like the first scar was only about like that big. Because as big as the tumor was, apparently its attachment to my head was only about that big. So just kind of mushroomed up, I guess. But
Fun.
yeah, yeah. So at this time, 4 years ago, I was very much phew glad that's over. So, but yeah. June for
No,
so,
here. It's all downhill from here.
in a manner of speaking, yes, for sure. Um, but yeah, other anniversary recently was anniversary of when I was born, also known as a birthday. So had one of those recently. Did not really much of anything, which was pretty glorious. Yeah, just like hung out with the kids because they were with their mom that weekend. But obviously, we carved out some time for them being with me on my birthday. So yeah, just hung out with them a little bit, played some games, went out to dinner at Eli's Barbecue. So anyone in the Cincinnati area who likes good barbecue, Eli's, fan
It's
friggin'
not a
tastic.
saucy barbecue. So I mean, it's like it's worth going for the uh, it's like a rub kind of barbecue.
Yeah, it depends what you get. Like if you get the ribs, like
Oh, you got
I
it.
don't know
So
if there's any sauce on those, but or I usually just get the pulled pork sandwich, like which is amazing. They do put sauce on that, but
oh, okay,
it's not like drowning in it or anything.
yeah.
But yeah, like just enough because like their sauce is really good too. But even like just the meat on its own is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, but my kids did get me a pretty awesome birthday present, which was basically just cash, but it had a stipulation because they told me that I had to spend it on going to a show
Ah,
because I mentioned a while ago that like coming up this year it looked like there were going to be like several shows that I was like really wanting to go to. Um, so 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 I guess they remembered me talking about that, which hey, like my teenagers remember me talking about stuff. I was blown away. I mean that was present enough, but
you
but
have
yeah, I just thought
teenagers. That's nuts.
it kind of is. Yeah. Fortunately, like they're still awesome and they still like being around me, even being seen with me in public. Like the couple weeks ago, like my daughter was fine. Like, well, she wanted to go to Target and it was like 8:30 at night. Like she needed something for school or something. I was like, it was real cold. Like I was already like relaxing. I had my robe on and I was like, well, I'll take you as long as you're fine with me going in my robe. And she was, and it was fun. And I was like, why don't I go shopping in my robe more often? That was fantastic.
Yeah, first time I wore
Um,
slippers to go grocery shopping at Kroger's, I was like, "Oh, I feel crazy, but this is nice."
yeah, I mean, for me, it was a big enough deal the first time I went shopping in sweatpants. But I was like, yeah, no going back after that. Um, so yeah, I just thought I'd level up to robe status. But yeah, so
Some
my
might
kids,
call that leveling down, but they are wrong.
those people can go fuck themselves. So oh, but that kind of reminds. Speaking of which, when we were at Eli's, my son, who's 13, he said, "And when I start dating someone, like on our first date, I'm going to take her to Eli's because if she doesn't like it, then I'll know she's not the one." I was like, "This kid's got it figured out." But yeah, so yeah, super sweet of my kids. Just give me money to put towards going to a show. Now, obviously, it wasn't enough for the entire ticket because but it was a pretty decent chunk of it. Um, so I spent it on. I'm actually going to see the band Nile tomorrow here in Cincinnati, playing at Bogarts. So if anyone's in the area wants to listen, go check out some brutal technical death metal with ancient Egyptian history and mythology themes, which is really awesome. Like some of their songs, they literally will just take like some ancient text that's been discovered and then just translate it into English. Like legit, like one of the most popular songs, and it was like their first single, like when they signed to like a big record label, like 10, 15 years ago or whatever. The actual title of the song was papyrus containing the spell to preserve its possessor against attacks from he who is in the water. And that's not even their longest song title. But it's an amazing song too. Anyway, so yeah,
That's kind
they're
of
coming to
wordy
Cincinnati.
for hieroglyphics, though, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if it was. I don't know what form of writing it was in, but I mean, it was like some old scroll that was discovered or whatever.
How do they
But
write
yeah, it's
anything
based.
down? Like that stuff's kind of laborious to write, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Also,
but
apparently, it can
yeah.
have like several different meanings. There's like the meaning the sentence is saying, and then there's also the
Mm,
symbolic meaning of the word itself.
mm-hmm.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
uh, like there's metaphors wrapped into what they're saying that
Mm, mm-hmm.
aren't optional. Not
Right.
like our
Yeah.
metaphors are like you can get what you want from it. They're like, no, it also means this.
Yeah, because like if I were to describe the lyrical content or the thrust or the message of the song, it's basically Set can go fuck himself. That's
There's always got
essentially
to
it.
be a god that needs to go fuck himself,
And in
or
Egyptian
demigod in
mythology,
the case of Satan.
yeah, but I don't know. He's kind of become my homie recently. But
Yeah, I was
yeah,
talking about like from the one perspective.
right.
The Satanists, like the what was the is the five tenets or whatever.
Mm-hmm. There's 710. I guess it depends which version you're talking about. Yeah.
It's all good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check them out. Satanic Temple. I'm technically a member, um, mostly for the activism. As I like to say, I'm a cultural Satanist. I'm in it for the political activism, not the actual beliefs. But
I'm a political Satanist.
even yeah, even though, like I said, beliefs like they don't actually believe in Satan. But anyway,
Yep.
so yeah, I'm gonna see me some Nile tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. So thanks, kids. I know you're not watching, but thanks anyway. Um, you better not be watching. This is very inappropriate when you're older. Um, so yeah. So any other like little quips, updates, or anything from you before we
um,
hit the topic?
it's been a wild ride the past few days
Yeah.
because like so we get Medicaid and
Mm,
then it was like, oh, that's not happening anymore yesterday. And
mm,
then that
yeah.
seemed pretty straightforward, like that was a thing that happened. And then it was, but then they're like, oh, but no. They didn't really say anybody screwed up. I was just
Uh
kind of
huh.
like, next day a memo came out. It was like, yeah, but no. And that's been about the funding for all that stuff. Uh,
Yeah. Hmm.
and it still seems like there's been like a couple press conferences, and the answer still seems to be yeah, but no. It's like, but what are you saying yes or no to?
Yeah.
They're like, they're like, it's all turned back on after a judge told them you have to leave it on. So that was the second one that came out was just kind of like them going, ha, it's actually our idea. And it's like, you
Right.
can't fire me, I quit. That kind of thing.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
and so like the judge is hopefully will continue to block it and because it's unconstitutional and illegal, like straight up. And
Yeah.
and here's the thing, okay? Um, our Constitution has some big holes in it, such as if the Supreme Court makes a decision or a federal court makes a decision, right?
Hmm.
The president, it's like in there, the president has to follow that, right? But there's no enforcement mechanism except impeachment.
Yep.
But that doesn't remove them from office. Apparently, only the voters can do that. But like,
Well, the Senate can. They just
they haven't
don't.
ever. Yeah, so good
Yeah.
fucking luck with that.
Yeah.
So like, but what if his party controls the Senate, which is what's going on? Then that's even more up in the air. Um,
Hmm.
But what if the president makes a unilateral decision? If we're just making constitutional things like illegal now, then
Mhm.
why not just say, well, I have decided I can suspend impeachment proceedings because I don't know, come and stop me. uh,
Right.
there is precedent. Andrew Jackson did that when he wanted to kill a bunch of Native Americans. The Supreme Court said, no, this is all bad and dumb and stupid and wrong. And he said, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go kill some Native Americans, and if you judges don't want that to happen, you should come stop me. He kind of was saying, okay, you and who and what army are going to make
Mhm.
this happen? Um, so we're in wild territory,
Yeah.
and just planning to be lower income,
Yeah.
like effectively when, yeah. So that's a little bit on my mind. Um,
Yeah, I
not
bet.
freaking out too much about it
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
because there's going to be a lot of us in the same boat,
Mm.
and nothing
Mhm.
unifies the people better than an obvious common enemy. So,
Right. Mhm.
like, there's too much momentum behind changing. Like, America is what it is because it reflects the people who are in it. So we got to where we
Mhm.
are because this is where we drove it. uh,
Yeah.
and I think something's happening where we're like, yeah, that was Americans Americaning the best they could America. And we're like, maybe we don't want that anymore.
Mm.
Maybe we want to America in the new way. And I think
Mm.
there's too much momentum behind a new way.
Mm.
And it has to do more with like long term benefits for everyone
Mhm.
instead of short term benefits for whoever can wrangle it first.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, and it doesn't even have to be socialism. Like it could be
Mhm.
capitalism as long as that mindset shift happens.
Yeah.
But uh,
Yeah. Still
so
wouldn't mind some good old UBI.
so
But
yeah, but that's going to happen anyway with automation and AI. That
mm.
either happens or words I can't say on YouTube will happen without like getting us monitored, probably.
Yeah.
Um,
That's all right. We'll work. We'll make sure that happens too. But because I know something you're wanting to discuss later in the episode, so
so
stay
either
tuned for that.
so either we get focused on win-win situations like long-term win-win stuff, or um, there's going to be enough people that kind of like flip that and kind of make it happen. Uh,
Mm.
just because there's too much momentum, and that's just how it will play out. If like a dam can only hold back so much water, and after that,
Hmm.
it's just something that's going to crumble. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it's impermanent. So we're going to undo everything. So this is like it's like the really stupid like funny part about all this is that like they're trying to like break everything so bad in the right way that like you can never be fixed in quotes again, and
Yeah.
it's like I
It's like you'll never have to vote again.
God, it's like, man, why didn't you just get this out of your system in the 60s like everybody else? You have to have like your stupid little like activism thing now when you're old and the most conservative you'll ever be. Like, uh,
Yeah. Some of us are late bloomers. So
this is like the conservative cosplay of a protest movement, but they did it all like nerdy and in government. Like,
uh
putting forth all this effort to do things. And guess what? The younger generations increasingly do not want what you're selling. So guess what's going to happen? We're going to undo all of it and just be pissed at you the whole time. Like
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, nothing like a good, spite fixing stuff.
It's like, do you really want to
Yeah,
be one of those people who voted for, like, you want to be like one of those Germans who voted for Hitler to take office, and they're like, I didn't think he would do it, and like, I,
yeah,
it's like, do you really want to be
yeah,
one of those people? They're like, I just didn't see it coming, and like, everybody else is like,
yeah.
literally told you, like, he was terrible at analogies and metaphors. He just straight up
Yep.
told you.
Yeah. I mean, plus he already has been president before, so at least we have kind of idea. That's why, like I was legit like seeing some people say like, I don't know, like he hasn't even been elected yet. Give him a shot. It's like we gave him a shot like 8 years ago. What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, interesting thing to look
Yeah.
into. There was actual voter suppression, like votes tossed out for spurious reasons. Um, and this past election, for the first time, regular old people could flag voters' registration information as fraud or illegitimate or something. And so there
Hmm.
was like voter registration activism, people like retired people who were just like basically going through, and anybody that looked like they had an ethnic name, any other sort other than Caucasian or European, got flagged. Predominantly African Americans, um, Hispanic Americans, and or Latin Americans. I don't know. I forget. Just whatever you want to be called.
Yeah,
It's
like Latin America refers to the region
right.
specifically, and you may or may not be Hispanic because Hispanic just means you come from a place that
Oh,
speaks
that's right.
Spanish.
That's right.
So, yeah. So, like, if you're
So
from Spain, you're Hispanic, but you're not Latin
okay, so
American.
brown people from
Yeah,
South.
yeah,
That's yeah, and it was something. It's like I forget the number. It's like 3 to 4 million, like well over the number of and people in those groups in the past election voted for Harris overwhelmingly.
hmm.
Not all of them, but like huge majority. And
You mean voted for Biden?
Harris,
Oh, and so when you meant so when you said the last election, you mean like this most recent one?
yeah, yeah, most recent.
Okay, I thought you were thinking when you say I thought you meant like the one before. Okay, yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
so by the
voted for
numbers,
Harris.
it's possible Harris won the popular vote. Um, so that's actual voter fraud. Oh, and they found out that a lot of provisional ballots that are cast, um, the majority of them just get thrown out, uh, like not processed. Because if your voter registration is challenged, then you have to cast a provisional ballot, and then
Hmm.
they sort out your registration, and then they're supposed to count it or not. But they apparently haven't been. Um, and so like it's possible the election could have gone for Harris. Um, the numbers are all verifiable and done by an independent group. Um, there's a lot of them. That's why I don't remember them. But it's pretty simple, like addition and subtraction kind of stuff. It's just like, here's how many she lost by. Here's how many probably voted for her but didn't get counted because they were challenged.
Mm.
It's like, it's more than she needed.
All right. Well, before we get on to the topic, looks like we have a new viewer here with some questions. What's going on here? Hey, we're Tommy and Matt having some conversations about things. More pertinently, perhaps, Christian or atheist? Atheist, myself.
I don't like labels, but I think most people would call me an atheist.
Yeah, certainly not Christian. At least I wouldn't say so, but that's just me.
No,
So, um,
maybe a
so
little
yeah.
like scientific mystical.
Ooh,
That
I was going to say scientistical,
science to mystical.
scientistical. I don't know.
That reminds me.
Oh, good.
Speaking of political things, but not exactly. So you know how ICE is going around and like in all the places where the all the people that they want to get are, and
Hmm.
places like buses and shit. And so an ICE agent, a bus, I guess, was stopped somewhere at a stop or a light or something, and this ICE agent would like knocked on the door. He's like, "I need to come on here," and the bus driver was like, "You can gargle my balls."
Here's to you, bus driver.
Because
That's
you don't
very
have
fucking
to.
bad.
Here's the thing: unless they have a warrant, they have a warrant, but it's not actually a warrant, which is more like an instruction to do a thing. That they say it's a warrant, but there's not a judge's signature on it, so it's not like a legal for entry warrant. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so you literally don't have to like say anything to them without that representation there. If it's not a judge's warrant, you don't have to do shit. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah. So you don't have to say anything, but gargle my balls is a good option if you must say something.
like,
So.
oh, that's a what a hero.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So.
Well, they're not ICE agents because they're wonderful people. There might be some wonderful people that do that for a living, but they're not there
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. That's not usually the catalyst. It's like, how am I going to be a wonderful person today? I know. Yeah. But
So
well,
the topic,
anyways,
the
yeah.
topic
So
for
I
the
was
day.
no. I'm going to transition us.
Oh, do it.
So things seeming pretty like glum and gloomy, and glum's a word, right? Yeah, bad. Things are seeming all the bad out there, and so normally this is a situation where we got go like, man, we just really need to pray for our country right now. But like
Yeah,
not in the way that most people who usually talk about praying for your country, they're usually like actually wanting all this bad shit to happen and are largely the people causing it. No, like in like the real way. but but we're like, oh, whoops, we don't believe in the Jeebus anymore, or the praying really. So what do now? So
what do
that
you know with hands? Like,
and what do now with hands and words. So yeah, because like we alluded to before, like so me and Matt, like we were like Matt more so than me, or at least for a longer period of time anyway, heavily involved in this like prayer ministry group thing at the church we used to go to that we affectionately refer to as Shoney's, even though we talked about him a couple weeks by name. But yeah, I just still like calling him Shoney's because I find it
right.
funny.
I
Um,
like it because it's a little disrespectful because it's not their name, and we know what their name is, and we actually could say it, but
yeah, but
but like
anyway,
any
so
marketing's good marketing, right? So fuck them. We're gonna use that.
that is the official stance of the humanity on that. So so yeah, so we'd be
Pray
like
away the
praying.
demons.
Yeah, we'd be like praying with people, for people, all around the people, with lots of people, with few people, with like all all the
for
things.
for,
And
for the healing.
hmm yeah, I
Some
remember
of
I've
us were praying for the gay to go away. For some people, I did not. I never did that.
yeah.
Was
Yeah,
not.
that's fortunately never a situation I was in. Now there was a guy that wasn't so much me; it was more like because we were always with partners. The guy I was partnered with, he seemed a little more um, gung ho about telling this guy that like sleeping with his girlfriend who he's not married to is like all the bad, and he's like, dude, you need to actually get married or just dump her.
So it'd be
And
like, how about you get
yeah,
your thoughts out of my bedroom? How
no,
about I'm
but
in charge of what happens there?
No, but
instead
see,
of
he wasn't when he was talking. It wasn't him. It was Jesus and the Spirit speaking through him, who had the
right,
authority, which is a
right.
great thing to
Because if Jesus
say.
didn't have any, you can't either.
Right? But that's also a great thing to say when you feel really strongly that someone's fucking up and you want to tell them, but and like normal people wouldn't say that to a person, but you're like, but I really want to. I know I have authority. So,
Or like, I'm
but
just calling
anyway,
it how I see it. It's like, right, you suck.
like, well, see better, uh, I guess. But speaking of see better, like some of the things we're praying for, like we mentioned, like people being healed. I remember like one of the first people I prayed for during this thing was this guy who said he was having vision troubles, and like while we were praying for him, his eyes like got better. And so it's like looking back on like things like that and being like,
It's kind of like, what was that?
yeah, and or even like just in my
like I'm,
own life.
because I'm not, I'm
No.
pretty sure it wasn't an angel, or you know what I mean. Like I'm pretty sure it wasn't
Hmm.
what I thought it was at the time. Like or positive, it wasn't. And
Yeah.
but then something did happen. So what
Yeah,
else
right.
was it?
Right. Yeah. And that's, and again, we'll probably get in a little more of this later, but that whole like, well, something was happening. But to me, this is one of those areas where when people say, well, what's the harm in like people having faith and like just believing what they want? It's like, well, just kind of on its own, not much, but in situations like this where there's something like real apparently like actually happening, where it would be great to like actually figure out what's really happening, but we just stick with the simple answer, the well, this is just God doing stuff. No need to, yeah, no need to try to find any like natural explanation for it or whatever. So in a way, I mean, that like literally hinders like progress, you could say. um
Yeah, like
but
just
yeah.
slightly related.
Hmm.
So fuck, what's his name? I think Hakeem Jeffries. Um, he's like supposed to be the head of the Democratic Party, but more Nancy Pelosi than him. Um, even though she's retired and old and probably a little senile. Today he was like he basically said in regards to stopping Trump with anything really, he was like it's in God's hands now. And I was like, that's what you tell somebody who's dying. Like you're giving up on them. It's like you're giving. That was an that was everybody we're giving up. And
Wow. Wow.
it's like I don't think they.
Well, even this saying like it's in God's hands now, like isn't it always in God's hands? Like what? What's what?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
also isn't that just a great way to also absolve yourself of responsibility?
Yep.
And so, like you
Hmm.
said, not looking for a natural cause or solution to
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
an illness, or in some people's cases, avoiding treatment because
Hmm.
because you're sure the Holy Spirit gave you instructions and you're supposed to trust
Hmm.
God, and it's like, okay, do you realize only one person in this Trinity has an actual fucking name? How are we supposed to trust any of them? How do you trust the one guy with a name when he's hanging out in like eternal forever friends with like these other two people who won't even tell us their names?
Yeah,
Um,
because one of them apparently has a name. We're just not allowed to say it or know it or
right.
whatever.
Or it's physically unpronounceable. Like Yahweh
Yeah.
is probably just breathing noises
So,
in Hebrew.
yeah, God is literally just a meme. Heavy breathing.
Right. Makes a whole lot of sense of like how interested he is in bedroom stuff.
Yeah. Fuck. Literally. And then the one with the name, his name's basically just Josh.
Right, yeah.
So, which nothing against Joshes out there. I know several quality people, but
Isn't that what spies do? They pick like a generic name in another country on their like fake passports and stuff. And
mhm.
so it's like Joe Smith. or something where they like just
Yeah.
like there were so many Jesuses they had to specify what town he was from, and then that probably didn't even help very much. Like Jesus of Nazareth, like
Right.
Jesus, which one?
Yeah.
The
I mean,
crowd
that's
shouts out.
yeah. It's like it's like it's like staying like Steve of Atlantic City. It's like thanks, real fucking helpful.
I'll
Yeah.
bet there was like a super great disciple, like potential disciple, that he just wouldn't let into the crew because his name was also Jesus.
Uh, Man, yeah, that would be
Oh, we're
bad.
all full of Jesus. Like
Yeah.
there were at least two disciples said the same name, right?
Yeah,
He
there were
wasn't against it as a blanket concept.
yeah, like there were two. Yeah, there were two Jameses and there were two Simons because Peter was actually Simon, but then Jesus just renamed him Peter
Too many
because
Simons. That's what it was.
yeah, because Peter I guess means rock, and there was a time where like when Peter like confessed like, oh, we believe you're the Messiah, like real deal, no cap, whatever, and it's a phrase I learned from my son. I may or may not be using it correctly, um, but and then Jesus is like, yes, absolutely, you're so awesome. He's like, I'm going to name you Peter because on this rock I will build my church. Even though the church actually ended up being more built on Paul, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
issue. So
Can you picture Peter going like, but you know when Paul was getting all the converts and stuff?
yeah, or when they actually had like big
Yeah.
disagreements on stuff. Yeah,
And Peter's like, I'm the rock.
it's like I actually like lived and hung out with them for like a couple years. Like you like did some shrooms out in the desert, and now you're like or whatever it was. Yeah,
He had like PTSD
so,
shrooms or something. He
yeah.
like
Which I mean, hey, whatever helps you cope. That's self care, man.
he
But
did like persecute a lot of people.
hmm
At least that's the
yeah,
story.
yeah. But anyway, so yeah, but yeah, praying and stuff. so so that was one of the big things for me anyway. After like deconverting, and in fact, it was actually a big part of my deconversion was actually um, a prayer experience. Um, I guess I'll go ahead and tell that story. It's a story I've told before, but in case people haven't heard it or want to hear it again, because it was just such a captivating yarn.
Ooh,
Um,
good verbiage.
oh, thanks. I would say I tried, but I really didn't. It just kind of fell out.
That's all right.
Um,
It wasn't verbs either. So
yeah. Well, verbiage. I mean, like the words. It was more like it was like the word equivalent of something just like tumbling down a hill and smashing on the rocks below, like Judas. Um, but anyway,
his entrails spilled out.
yeah.
Like he
hmm
tripped and
Because
fell, and his intestines fell out. Like is that
yeah,
what one of the gospels said?
well, it's one of the Gospels and Acts, but they both record like that. One of them says he hung himself. The other one says he
Yeah,
fell headlong, and his
yeah.
guts burst open. And so people try to reconcile that. Oh well, he hung himself, but then like when the rope broke and he fell. Okay, but it says he fell headlong. When you're hanging and you fall, you don't fall head first. You fall feet first. But it's more like the other ones. It's more like he just like threw himself off a cliff or something, and then.
Maybe they hung him by his neck upside down.
No, but he hung himself.
Oh, that's a lot of effort. He probably would have changed his mind in the middle.
Well, he felt really bad about what he did.
Oh,
So he's
okay.
like, this needs to be a high effort, me dying. Um, it'll be one for the books.
That seems like Judas.
That's so Judas. Uh, so, but anyway, I'm going to tell a story.
Okay,
All that to say.
Pappy's too.
Gather round, youngins. So, praying was actually a big factor in my deconversion. In fact, I kind of like to say I basically officially became an atheist during a prayer exercise. Um,
You did
and
it
I think
wrong.
I don't know. I think I did it so right. Well, here I'll let you find people be the judge. I guess as long as you're correct. Um, but and I think this story kind of is a good illustration of kind of where I'm at on like what prayer really is or was for me and what was really happening. So this was for people who know my story. This was maybe like a month and a half after I had gone into remission from stage 4 cancer. I had melanoma. We were referencing the crater on the back of my head earlier. Yeah, and yeah, gone into remission in early September of 21, and this was late October that year. So this was before, like, I think at this point I was already like saying I don't think I'm a Christian anymore, like for lots of reasons. You can go back and watch other episodes, particularly one I think I did it in July, called like Doubting Tommy or whatever. Yeah, go look up that episode. That's one where it was just me. I just kind of went much more in depth into like my story. Um, but focusing particularly on the having cancer and then coming out of that. So yeah, at this point, wasn't really considering myself Christian. Hadn't quite, taken the step to say, okay, I'm atheist. But and even at the time, like at that time, I didn't say, okay, now I'm an atheist, but more like looking back on it is like kind of when I think, it's probably when it actually happened. So so me and Matt were still part of a men's small group at the church, Shoney's, that we used to go to.
At somebody's house, but three that.
Yeah. But so we've had like an assignment during the week between meetings. Basically, just said, just sometime during the week, just carve out some time, just spend an hour like alone, like just you and God, just in prayer, meditation, worship, whatever. So, like I said, at this point, I was still like not even really sure what I believed about any of this stuff anymore. So I was like, okay, this might be a good chance to yeah, basically give God a chance, like see what's actually going on. So I basically just spent my time. I started it like I was sitting outside. It's in my garage. Um, it was raining, so it was nice, relaxing. I had my coffee. It was like a Sunday morning or something, appropriately enough. Um, so I started basically saying, like, "All right, God, if you're real, show up somehow." So I spent most of the time basically just like sitting there, just thinking, like seeing what thoughts came, like pondering, like, you know, obviously like not hearing anything, and just wondering, I wonder why that is. And just like doing things like watching the rain and like, well, if that's not God doing this, what is going on with all this? And so then after a little bit, I just got an idea. It's like, oh, maybe I should give God something like specific, like real tangible. So like I'd finished my coffee.
It's like maybe he can't read my mind.
Yeah.
You're like maybe it's just a little too confusing. Maybe I should narrow it down.
Right. I mean, my mind is a very confusing place. Yeah, to be fair,
Yeah, mine too.
if people haven't been able to tell. Um, so I was like, all right, well, God, my coffee's done. Cup, mug's empty. So I guess if you're real, like maybe it seems like a kind of dumb cliche kind of test, but I just fill my coffee cup back up. So I just like set it down next to me, and like I said, just went on, just sitting there listening or pondering whatever, and not hearing anything. But then after a little while, I think even like forgetting that I'd even said that, I was just like, oh, like it's empty. But you know how your coffee mug will still have like the stains or whatever, like whatever's left. Or I think there was actually like even like a little bit of grounds like that had made their way in, sitting at the bottom. So like, oh, maybe I should like get some water in this, kind of swish it around. So like I said, it was raining, so I was kind of stuck it outside. I think it was like where some like water was dripping off the roof of the garage or whatever. So I just like filled it up, swirled around. I'll just let it sit there so it doesn't stain too bad or whatever. And then after doing that, like by the end of the time, like I said, like heard nothing. I did a little like journaling or like note taking on my phone. I still have the notes, more just because I wanted to remember the time by. But But then by the end of it, then I remembered, oh yeah, I asked God to fill my cup, and it's full now, but I filled it. So, like, because I think if I were to like just tell like just part of that story and just say like, all right, I had this experience where I was basically giving God a chance to show up. I asked God to do a thing or make a thing happen, and then by the time my prayer time was over, the thing had happened. Like if I just say that, I'm guarantee you, like so many Christians will say, "Oh, see, God did that." Then I was like, "Okay, but I'm the one who did the thing." So like, guess who's God now, bitches? I guess. But
You're like, oh my god, I can't believe I kept that from myself the whole time. Man, I'm good with secrets.
too good, apparently. So yeah, that's the day I kind of official, like I said, more like retroactively, retrospectively, whatever, in hindsight, perhaps.
There you go.
Um,
That's a phrase
mhm.
for that.
Yeah, I kind of consider that my eighth anniversary or whatever. But yeah, because it's like okay, like I said, leading up to that, like I was still going through just a lot of questioning and wondering, and so like genuinely seeking, like wanting to know, like if there was a God, who was he? What is he like? What does he want? All the things, like genuinely, earnestly wanting to know, but just hearing absolutely nothing. So at that point, I was like, all right, God, this is your last shot. And I got nothing. So I was like, all right. So at this point, I just basically considered it like balls in his court. Like if he wants me to believe, he's had over 3 years now. And
Well, Tommy, he
still
cured
nothing.
your cancer. What else do you want?
Right. Yeah.
how
Cured
many
my
times?
cancer.
How many times could you like read that thought in people's heads, like when you're telling them that like you don't believe anymore? Like you
Yeah.
just see
Well,
it.
it's really easy when, like, on rare occasion, they would flat out tell me. Oh yeah, it was really great. This one dude, this is also great. That this is like
This is an online guy,
literally,
right?
yeah, this was like literally guy I knew in high school, and even then only barely. Like we weren't even close, but like
Suddenly
connected on
gives a
Facebook.
shit.
Yeah, and he's like I said, cool, really cool guy. Like he's one of the people like I do like. It's rare, but like on occasion, like he's someone I do enjoy like actually interacting with because he'll like actually respond and like talk about stuff. But there was at one point like where he said something about like, oh, like after all that God did for you, like speaking of healing me from cancer. It's like, and I don't remember how I responded, but I know how I wanted to respond. Uh, Probably would have included a pretty hearty get fucked. Uh, but I know that's
It's like, oh
not the
my, where
healthiest.
have you been this whole time with your amazing wisdom that you were saying to me now? Like, I would have had no questions in the past if I had just been. I
Yeah.
when people say stuff like that, and they're like, have you heard this? This amazing thing I'm about to say right now that you've already heard so many times.
Yep. Or the best was like I had this again. No, guy I knew in high school. At least knew this guy a little better than guy A. But again, like I hadn't spoken to him since. Like I said, we knew each other. We weren't like super close by any means or anything. But you know, again, cool guy. But yeah, again, like after not communicating in decades, like at all, like just reaches out to me like private message, like, hey man, I see like a lot of your posts about like questioning like Christianity or like saying what you don't believe and stuff. Like it seemed like you're like really angry with it or whatever. It's like I just wondering like if you'd heard like was there any like just really like harmful theology that you heard that really kind of turned you off? And then when like and after wondering if it was harmful theology, went on to recommend a book by a Dr. Michael Brown, who, for people who aren't familiar, very like reformed fundamentalist, like substitutionary atonement, eternal conscious torment in hell kind of thing. Like if you go to hell, you deserve it kind of shit. And it's like
Reformed is kind of interesting. Like that group is really intriguing to me.
yeah, but the fact that he's like, okay, you may have heard some harmful theology. Try this. I'm like, dude, like first of all, I find just about all of the Christian theology is harmful to at least some point, but like especially that shit, you know. So yeah, and it was really great when he even asked me like, you ever considered that maybe you've just been demonized? Like,
no,
and I told him like, dude, and I told him. And this is like to use this as a cautionary tale for others, because this is something I told him. It's like, dude, you are so lucky I don't have any trauma attached to that. For you to just like throw that out there, like talk about like demon possession and stuff, like so for real, like if you do not know someone's like actual full like spiritual journey and background and like what led to wherever they are now, don't just throw out stuff like demon possession and things like that, because there are some people out there who have some serious trauma about that sort of thing. So just bringing it up can be a really bad trigger. So,
yep,
don't.
Yep.
Yeah, my big thing is if you're wanting to try to, I don't know, revert someone, whatever. First of all, my honest suggestion
it's
is
serious attempted mind control at that point. If you're just trying to,
yeah. So my first suggestion is just don't. But if you just feel so compelled, like lead with questions, not suggestions.
Try to understand.
Wait until you've heard their full story, if they're willing to tell you. Because also, like, they are under no obligation to share shit with you. Just because you're wanting to know so you can bring them back and feel better about yourself. Like, no. They are under no obligation at all to you. So just go into it with that in mind.
Yeah. So somebody anyway, who's deconverted and hasn't exploded is like really dangerous to people who still believe, because like they can't let you or them find out that you're fine.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much.
And so like, yeah, so they have to convert you or have to spend their main focus trying to like convert you back, because if they don't, then they'll start to like empathize.
Right. Yeah.
And try to like, or realize you have a point.
Right.
Atheists can't have a point. I mean,
again, that's what happened to me. Like I finally like opened myself up to the possibility that, hey, maybe all these non-Christians and atheists or whatever, maybe they have some points. Maybe I should actually listen to them. So I did. And here I am. So they're right, kids. It's a slippery slope, but it's a fun one. Sometimes
the slippery slope stops somewhere.
Yep. Anyway, well, I guess I shouldn't say it's a fun one, but it's a more fulfilling.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Intellectually, worth it. That's. It's just like the Christians say about following Jesus. Only this is actually true. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, people should go where their brains already are.
Yep.
So
intellectual
which would mean
honesty,
like kind of leaving, like the understanding that kids have of the world before like religion takes hold or something. Like they all have like a similar concept of the world. There is something big out there, bigger than me. That is everything. And so like there's a respect for that and a sense of connection with it. And like you can also have a connection with that through like everything else that exists. And then that would be it. Or then we like tried to do science before we knew how.
Right.
And they were
I
like,
mean,
all right, it's this story about this guy who wore the thing and did the big angry in the sky. When we think that way about things, we get more rain and things grow better and we don't all die. So that
mhm.
means that's what's happening.
Which I mean, and that's I guess to segue back to the topic. I mean, that's the way a lot of Christians or religious people in general, I find, like treat prayer because at least in our experience, I think a lot of Christians are at least honest enough to say that they really don't understand like how or why prayer works sometimes, like when it does, because like
Mhm.
we'll say, well, you have to pray for the thing in order for it to happen, but it's not like you're changing God's mind or getting him to do something he wasn't gonna do. It's this whole
But sometimes having
thing.
more people pray, like you think that's going to work a lot better.
Hmm.
Um, but we're
Yeah,
not the
or
ones making it happen.
yeah,
Also,
or
and
like, but you have to pray in faith. But then at least the nicer ones will say, "Oh, but if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean it's your fault." Even though there's several verses in Scripture, even including from Jesus, Mister Nice Guy himself, saying like, "No, that actually is your fault for if I can't do anything to heal you or whatever,
do
and
you
if you
remember
didn't
like
have enough faith." So,
the hedging bet, or like, wow, like where you hedge your prayer and you
yeah.
say, if it's your will,
Oh yeah, I
then I
did
want
that
this to
all the
happen.
time.
So it's
Like,
kind of
yeah,
like,
as a
if that's your will, I agree. And
mhm.
it's like,
Yep.
now because you agree, God's like, it is a good idea, and then does it?
Yeah. So it's like I said, I at least like appreciate like the Christians who are honest enough to admit that they don't understand it or that it doesn't make sense because they don't and it doesn't. But to be honest myself, but yeah, it's like you said, like, but all they know is, well, sometimes when we do this, something like totally like unexpected or unexplained or just so amazing it has to be something supernatural happens. So in that sense, like it's like I said, it's if you don't have like other tools to like investigate these things, or if you're unwilling to use other tools that are at your disposal, but you feel like you can't, then like that's just the story you're gonna go with. You're like, and that's why people say like their personal experience for them is so strong. It's like, well, these things happen, and like you can't tell me it didn't. It's my and it convinced me that this is all real because I can't think of any other way to explain it. And but it's like, I mean, but by that token, I mean, you can't tell the ancient Mayans that like ripping people's hearts out doesn't bring the sun back from an eclipse. I mean, because they're like, well, we do it every time and it works. So,
And they're like, and we're really afraid not to do it.
right? Yeah,
Because
I mean, and look, and we didn't even like these people anyway. So it's no, no skin off our backs or no hearts out of our chests. So,
Mel Gibson, he made that movie. Remember that?
yeah, Apocalypto. Yeah, I saw it. There were
It's amazing. One of the most amazing chase scenes through a jungle or a forest or anything similar.
yes.
That was
And
fantastic.
and honestly, my favorite part of that movie was when like the main character or characters or whatever are like first brought like to like where all the sacrifices and stuff are happening, because at least from what I remember, it's been years since I've seen it, but at least from what I remember, there was no like at first, like usually in like some big movie you think, oh, now we're at like the site where this is all happening. It would probably at least start with like a big like wide like panning shot like with the pyramids and the people and everything. Like no, this didn't have any of that. It was literally almost just like from their perspective, but
Right.
it totally captured that feeling of like what the fuck is happening right now, because it's like they're just being led somewhere and then they look up and there's this big building, oh, and someone's head is rolling down and like there's people screaming and like it's just felt like
Yeah.
total chaos and confusion, which I thought that was like really well done.
Yeah.
So
Mel Gibson tells a
yeah,
good story. Racist as fuck, but he tells a good story.
yeah, yeah. God, yeah. I saw. Yeah. Anyway, so
He
so
was on the Joe
prayer is.
Rogan. He was experience, and
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
it's like, oh, Grandpa's not okay.
Yeah. No.
It's
No.
like he's either on drugs now or he's been on a lot of drugs, and this
That,
is
yeah.
just how his brain works now.
Yeah, which reminds me of a thing I heard from some I didn't know, but like let's say friend of a friend, like friend of an ex-wife. Um, like someone was talking about how like drugs or whatever, they don't have any long-term effects, and he's like, no long-term effects. Do you have any idea how many times I've waited at a stop sign waiting for it to turn green? Yeah, that made me chuckle. So, so yeah,
That could actually
um,
happen.
yeah,
I mean, because
but
there's stuff that yeah, there's stuff that happens where you it's like it's like a different it's like a different version of this world, but you think like the regular world's rules apply to that, and so I don't know. It's like you can overlay two things in your head at the same time,
yeah, oh yeah,
and
for
you're
sure.
like, why isn't that elephant like unrolling? And you're like, oh, it's because that doesn't do that, and it's also not there.
Like, why isn't it for all the reasons? Just all the reasons is why that's not happening. Oh man. So yeah. So I guess, but yeah. But back to the idea of like the story that like people tell themselves. So I mean, does that make sense? I mean, do you think that's like, I mean, from your experience, like, is that kind of how you thought of it, or how you explained it to yourself? Or like, well, look, I'm doing all this stuff, and things are happening when I pray the things. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
um, I keep getting work text bubble pop ups.
Hmm.
This fucking app apparently doesn't listen to my do not disturb.
Yeah, just the
Yeah.
one that does all the disturbing. Yeah,
So I mean, I love you people that you want to pay me money for things, but like, I don't know, after hours and shit.
yeah. This is after all the hours.
I don't know. It's kind of our fault for replying to texts late.
Yeah.
Anywho, uh, praying into stuff. I think it's a I think it's a combination of things
Hmm.
because, um, because like we either saw things happen for real, like saw like some of them like really impressive stuff. Physical healings were, if that happened, that was kind of like fun and stuff in like a carnival kind of way.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but then like the really impressive, more touching stuff was seeing people uh, go through like it was like emotional healing just got like sped
Hmm.
up. It was like
Yeah.
watching something that might normally take somebody like months or like years. You don't, depending on what it was, to kind of come to grips with or be able to move past or start moving through. And you just kind of like see it melt in somebody's face. Like you can see
Hmm.
like it's like a general countenance change.
Hmm. Hmm. Good
um,
word.
so that was really cool. And so
Hmm.
there's like
Yeah.
I think there's a combination of things. I think there's, at least from like our perception of it, there seems to be like a connection between people that we can kind of pray to, which might be, it doesn't even need to be like prayer because like meditating or loving kindness meditation, which I think is a form of like Buddhist,
Hmm.
one of the branches of Buddhism. That's something that they do, I think. um, and it's similar things to how like Christians like the quote unquote Mother Teresa, even though she wasn't all that fantastic, perfect.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Fucking Mother Teresa.
Oh, I did not have that on my show bingo card for tonight. But I mean,
um,
I love it though. I've been to her tomb twice.
really?
Yeah.
That awesome, huh?
I mean, people. Well,
Like, did you get lost and just end up there again? Like,
no, it was like with the church we used to go to. They did like the go trips to India, and I went to a couple. I went to included Calcutta. I mean, people there just think she's the shit. So,
no, she did a lot of awesome things. Also,
mhm.
um, there are some like specifically Catholic-y ideas that she had about, I think, like contraception and
Oh yeah, hmm,
uh, for sure abortion.
yeah,
I don't remember that
and also
specifically.
just yeah, and also just generally be like, oh, like suffering is good, but like not in the like actually like healthy way. More like no, this is like more like this is what God wants, like for you to be suffering, because then that makes you closer to Him. But He's not abusive. Yeah. So.
I think it makes you retreat further into like whatever is the core of our experience here. You know,
Mm,
because like
yeah.
the more unsafe and the more unsafe the physical world is, it seems like the more I think it's like a going inward. Like when there is no peace to be had exterior to yourself, um,
Mm,
then the only thing left other than giving up is to find that in yourself. And
mm,
so
yes.
whatever that
Exactly.
place is, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it could still be totally just evolutionary and genetic and biological, like whatever that place is, we all have it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we can kind of like help each other get to it. But like everybody's instructions on how to get there are different. And
Right. Yeah.
then just like people do, we tried to like turn it into a product, something like we could barter a
Mm-hmm.
buck off of, or something. And
Right.
then we then we had like a corporate monopoly where they got the Catholic Church. All these little like neighborhood businesses, little like neighborhood collectives of like religious thought or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
then you had mergers and acquisitions of
Mm-hmm.
other religions.
Right. And then expansions and franchising and yeah. Uh, but yeah, I want
Holy
to go back.
shit! We're in the phase where America has an inquisition.
uh,
We got so awesome
okay.
we suck it. But no. That
Right. Yeah. But
I used to
I
have
wanted
that
to,
perspective.
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
hey, guess what? You know what Israel
No.
did to Palestine? We did that to the Native Americans. We just didn't put a fence around it. uh,
Yep.
yeah. And now we can't tell them apart from other brown people from Central and South America. And so ICE agents are like, where's your papers? You a citizen? And so a lot of Native Americans, like, I think they're not exact. Some of them are U.S. citizens, like by default, but they're also kind of not
Yeah.
because they were here before America,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have papers
Yeah.
of Indian of Indian verifying they're of Indian
Yeah.
blood or something. And ICE
Yeah. It's
agents are
almost.
like That's not proof. Like,
I mean, that's like asking like the Rocky Mountains if they're citizens. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
and realize how
Yeah.
absurd that is to somebody who's native because like you're like you act like they're like you fuckers like literally came here with your rules, made more rules, and then gave us the papers that your rules said we needed. And then other people who enforced the rules came and said, those aren't our rules. And, and they're like, no. The names are like, no, it literally is. This is all your rules. Like,
Yeah.
this is all your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. But prayer. But I want to go. There was something you said.
Well,
You were talking about.
we colonized it, and then like we got mad when like now other people are trying to colonize
Because really, how dare they? Um, yeah, fuck.
That's so dumb.
It is. But
Manifest Destiny is so dumb.
yeah, it's. Anyway,
You were saying,
I was about to say. Speaking of dumb, let's get back to prayer, but that's maybe harsh, but only maybe. But
oh, I think it's complicated. Sometimes you're kind of like connecting directly, maybe like mentally. There's like if you there's like a connection you get with other people that seems special.
yeah, mm-hmm.
Like not something that normally happens. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and a
Yeah,
connection with yourself and a bigger.
that's it.
um,
Yeah, and it's. But yeah, I want to like kind of focus on the whole like connection with others and then connection with yourself kind of thing, because like you were saying, like one other like it wasn't just like when we were praying with people, it wasn't just like if we would pray for like healing, like physical healing or something. Like I said, they'd say something would happen, but like with this physical healing stuff, it's always the kind of stuff that you could just say, like, not saying that people are like faking it or acting, or they may be like genuinely convinced in themselves that like something is happening, but it's usually like the kind of stuff where you just kind of have to take their word for it that it's happening, because it's usually like some kind of pain they're having. Like that's the big one.
the
But
pain
like it's
I had a hard time buying anyway because I knew that there were a lot of like opiate kind of chemicals that are released in your brain during prayer.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Um,
for
so
sure.
we clearly evolved with prayer, and it was useful, but also meditation is, I
Mm-hmm.
would argue,
Yeah.
definitely more useful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. But yeah, so there's that. So like so I said, so again, it's one of those things like there is something going on there, but I think we're just like misattributing it, perhaps, or probably, or definitely. But
it's like we put our own story around something that here's where I am. Uh,
mhm,
something there's something real, okay? Because there were things that happened that like um, couldn't explain, like yeah, there were just experiences that where I'm like, okay, that doesn't normally happen. Like that was a lot of whatever it was. You know, it was different regularly,
mhm,
but
yeah,
and then we made up our own stories about what had happened, and then like yeah, mistook our map for the territory. Um,
yep, exactly, yep,
so looking at it more like the faith is more like the active faith, you know, like have,
hmm
having stories you believe in and all that, or that you identify with. Um, I think the utility in those wasn't in their factuality. It was in their ability to kind of coach people into states of mind or directions of intention that connect us to something real, or or it could even just be like thinking this way about things and behaving this way makes hold on.
Mm-hmm. Matt is using really terrible swear words right now. That's what that was all about.
I gotta. Owen's asking for more screen time because I guess Aaron fell asleep.
Uh,
Um, all right, got that set up. Uh, what was I saying? Oh, it connects us. Maybe it just gets our whole like brain and body system just like functioning at like optimum.
mm,
And there
yeah.
was in religion is kind of a way that like helped that happen. It wasn't because it was
Mm,
real. It was because like it was a way to hack our human experience.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
we can't help but make tools or do things to try to make our lives easier.
Right. Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I because there's some stuff with the information that's coming out about the alien non-human intelligence and the craft and stuff. There's a lot of like actually like serious well-known scientific people coming out and like who have been part of working on these things uh saying what they're able to say. And
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, there's a lot of like psychic stuff. Like there's actually people in the military called psionics, and they're it's a category of people that have been trained because they have natural abilities, and they do things like communicate with the craft. They remote view, and they do like they work with the CIA to help like determine coordinates of things. They might even. This sounds fucked up. Somebody put it out. One of the okay, one of the special forces guys who has like training in communicating information without saying the information. Those guys are always fun in interviews because there are times when you're like, I think he's saying something else. He's like, I mean, like,
Mm.
imagine if you could, like, if a psionic could reach out across the world and stop somebody's heart. Like, that would be crazy, wouldn't it? They can share information in a hypothetical a lot easier sometimes than you're like, fuck, are people doing that? Holy shit.
Big if true. Yeah.
It's just like, when very serious people make jokes, it makes me really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, I'm pretty much always uncomfortable. But yeah, but especially then.
So there's a there
Mm.
with
Yeah.
all that stuff.
But yeah, and that and I think like speaks to like something that I've like been thinking, I guess speaking of, how we're viewing these things now that we don't have, the faith or like specifically Christianity story to put on these things, but still recognizing like something's happening. Like something that I've been thinking of, like whether it's things in prayer specifically or like when people talk about like being able to like speak prophetically or tell people something that like, oh, there's no way you could have possibly either known that about me or known that that was the thing that I needed to hear right now, kind of thing. It's like the way I like to put it is like we already know that like our bodies, and the more we're learning about just our own bodies, like we're doing things all the time that we aren't like actually consciously aware of.
Right.
Or the way I like to put it, like I'm constantly doing things that I don't actually know how to do. Like digesting food. Like I don't know how to digest food, but I do it all the time. Like I don't know how I know how to breathe, but I don't know how to take the oxygen from the air and put it in my blood vessels and send it everywhere that it needs to go,
Yeah,
but
it's like
I'm doing it all the damn
I
time.
literally don't know
So,
how to talk. Like, you know what I mean? Like
oh yeah.
I couldn't
Hmm.
instruct someone else on how to talk.
Yeah, like all the different muscles and like air that things that need to like constrict and open up and like to happen to form the sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like whatever kind of like communication is apparently like going on like between people or like what you were saying like with people and whatever these other things are, it's like yeah, I mean 'cause this is a criticism that a lot of like atheists or non-believers generally will get is like, and I think erroneously, like people throw, oh, I can't, like, why don't you, like, it's so ridiculous that you don't believe in like things that are like bigger than yourself or don't you understand that there are things out there that we don't understand? It's like, okay, like, yeah, we're not saying we don't believe in things bigger than ourselves or we don't recognize that there are things that we don't understand or comprehend or whatever. It's just the difference is we're not pretending to know what it is until we actually know what it is. So,
And I think
but yeah, but
whatever
so yeah, so it
we
seems.
would never know. It would always be bigger than we could understand. So there always would be more to figure out.
Mhm. Yeah, so when it comes to like whatever you might call it, like telepathic or prophetic, whatever words you want to put on it, kind of communication that apparently of some sort is happening. It's like it's completely possible that there is some completely like material, physiological, natural process that is going on that is forming some sort of connection like between human like those like brains or other systems or whatever that we have like that we just haven't discovered yet. But
Like we
yeah.
just found out recently the appendix has a function.
Hmm. Yeah, like still like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean we figured it did at some point, but yeah, it still
You're like, that's
does stuff.
extra.
No, but for the young Earth creationists out there, that does not mean that it is still not vestigial. Is that the word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like vestigial doesn't mean no longer has any function whatsoever. Vestigial just means it used to do another thing, but we still have it, and now it may or may not be doing a thing, but it's still there, but not for the thing that it was there for originally. That's
Like our
all that
tailbone.
means. Yeah.
Right. That
Hmm.
looks like a little tail.
Yeah. I mean, it's still doing something like it anchors like certain muscle attachments or whatever. So yeah, it still
But
is
it's not
performing
the
it.
right thing a
Yeah.
nub couldn't.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
why does it have a little flex to it?
Hmm. Yep. Exactly. So, so yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess, and by way of maybe like starting to wrap up the like first drink thing. But so speaking of like, okay, so but then how? So where do we go like from here? So I had another story about me.
Okay.
Um, so this is after I think at this point I was like full on just atheist. Like I don't know how open I was about it at the time, but yeah, had
Full
no.
frontal atheist.
No, that's our OnlyFans channel. Um, but
And it would just be like really obvious atheist things.
yeah,
No nudity.
nope. I mean, don't give away our secrets.
or it would be atheists doing like pretty disrespectful things in places of worship. But like petty things. Like
Uh,
going in and turn like this Catholic church I used to go to, they had like all the hymnals in like a rack. Um,
uh-huh.
and so you had to like grab one as you came in. And like if we went just like tried a bunch of them backwards, like twirling mustaches.
Or swapped them out with some Baptist hymnals. That'd be.
Ooh.
um. Anyway, but yeah. So yeah, story about me. Like
Some
as far as like
nonsense. I know, sorry.
yeah. But yeah, so I was at a point where, like I said, whatever I was at the time, still like just not believing in God. Like I wasn't praying anymore or doing any of this stuff. But there was one night where I had this nightmare, it was like still like one of the just like worst dreams I've ever had. Just like emotionally, like I won't go into details, but it was. I think I told the story to you, Matt, about what it was. But basically, like it was something like so like devastating and like so I woke up from it like literally like in tears. Like I was so shaken from it. I remember like laying in bed, like thinking to myself, like, okay, this is a time where before, like, I would be praying like so hard right now, but that's kind of not a thing I do anymore. And even if I were to try, like, it would totally like not be sincere. Like, I'd be faking it, and
Yeah.
because like with my personality, like faking things is kind of painful sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
but but I'm like okay, but it's like okay, but I need to do something because like I am not okay right now. So I'm like so then I started thinking to myself, okay, well if I did pray, like what would I be praying for? And I was thinking, okay, just like peace, calm, comfort, like reassurance, like knowing everything's okay. That was just a dream. It's not something I have to actually worry about. Like none of that's happening. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just say that to myself. So I just started talking to myself like, you're okay. Like everything's fine. Everyone's fine. That was just a dream. Like, yeah, you're shaking. That's like a real emotions and stuff you're having right now, but you're okay. So I did that and it fucking worked.
And I remember you also saying that like you were telling yourself the things that you would want to hear from God.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So you were like the worshiper and the worshipped at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So once again, who's God now, bitches? So
And
that's going to be my new catchphrase now, I think.
didn't
Make that
Jesus
trend.
want us to be Jesus?
I mean, he said we'd
Like
do greater things than him, which I mean, looking back on
it's like I
giving
just
like really
leveled
giving
up.
like an
I am Jesus.
it's like, well, that was a plot twist. I did not see that coming.
I got
Um,
closer and closer to God till I realized I was God. You're like,
yeah.
that's arrogant and stupid. And it's like, no, I just realized that like if God is omnipresent, that includes me.
No, like that's how I'm gonna like break it to now. Like, hey Christians, I got good news and bad news.
You're like, I'm God.
I, I believe I'm not an atheist anymore, but the reason will shock you. Uh,
But if God is real, I'm just not all of God.
yeah. So, but yeah. So I remember like laying there, like after going through all that and realizing, hey, that like actually fucking worked. And like the thought that came to my mind, because again, like reflecting back on okay, the times when I would be praying, and again, like when I would pray in similar situations, like I would also say, "Oh, that worked." Like I feel so much more at peace now. But I'm just like, wait, okay, so it worked then, but it also worked now when I was really like literally talking to myself. So I was like, was I just talking to myself the whole time? Like, is that all that was like really happening? Because I even thought back to like the times I was like praying like with other people like for them,
Mhm.
and I realized like even thinking back like at the time even just thinking like as I was like saying the words in the prayer, like almost having to kind of like remind myself, kind of bring myself back because I almost forgot that I was talking to God. Like it really just felt like I was just talking basically to the other person or to like the people around me. And I was like, okay, that has to say something there where you or even in the middle of prayer, something that you believe is talking to God, you have to remind yourself that no, I'm talking to God right now. Like you have to like kind of force yourself. But when it just like flows naturally, it's just like I'm just talking to the person, saying things that I think they should hear and would be helpful. Because
Th-
yeah,
There's something about speak. So sometimes, yeah, like when it was flowing and stuff and all that. I'm kind of like remembering as you're describing it, and the way I would describe it now is that like I wasn't looking back. I don't think I was praying to God. I think I was praying to the space between and the connection between me and that person.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I was talking
Yeah.
to like our shared experience almost.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
like how many times would when guys came in to because it was only a guys thing at this thing and when they would come in and talk and the stuff that you would like pray for them to hear from God, like how much better would it have been if we just said those things to them and
Yeah.
meant it, and
Right.
like how much more powerful that would be. And now I'm also
Mm-hmm.
realizing that's kind of what I was doing when people were having like emotional healing and stuff, and it was just through a conversation by saying certain things.
Mm.
Um, and then looking back,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying the things that like
Yeah.
that God would say to them. Um,
Yeah.
but I was
But it had to
really
come
kind
from
of
you.
like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
just really, I was really just like feeling for listening for what happens next. Like, what
Mm.
is the best thing to happen right now, and
Right.
in doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
then you see people get peace and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like
Fuck yeah.
like what we just did worked.
Yeah, but that reminds me of something you actually told me at the time. I think this was leading up to my first time like volunteering with this prayer team. And I remember saying to you, like talking about like how excited I was for camp and like for everything, and just saying how like what I really felt like going into it was like I just can't wait to like tell all these guys like how much God loves them. And do you remember your response?
Yeah, I think.
That
I mean,
was
I
an
did, and
interesting.
then you told me a couple times, and I was like, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Like how much?" I forget. You remember it?
Yeah, you basically said what would probably be, I don't remember your exact words, but essentially what you're saying, like, what would be more impactful is for those guys to feel how much you love them. I remember at the time I was like, oh, but I was feeling a thing, and now you're telling me I need to be feeling a different thing.
Oh, that's
but
not what
but
I.
no, but you were right. I mean,
Well, I hope I
yeah.
wasn't telling you to feel something different.
Oh no, no, yeah,
I mean, I might have been. I did some jerk stuff now and then like that. We're doing the Jeebus praise.
yeah. Hmm. Yep, yep. I mean, I mean, come on. If you're not pissing someone off, are you really being a good Crimsbian anyway?
Yeah,
So
Jesus might have been a good guy, but and that's the jury's completely out on that. Not that they not unanimous. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
It's a
like
hung jury. Yeah, like Judas.
Christianity, Christianity is a sociopath.
Yep, yep. Yeah. So, all right, but speaking of the whole, like, what you were saying is like how like it was really like the connection between you and them, or like even like your what you said to me at the time, which I think now is like maybe more true than either of us realized at the time. The whole like
hmm
what's really important is for them to hear these things like as if they're coming from you. And then my experience of basically praying to myself, for myself, or whatever you want to call that, kind of like talking myself down,
hmm
um, making myself feel better. Like, 'cause to me, like I love sharing that story, like
Holy shit,
about
you were literally shaping reality by doing
ooh,
that. You're
well, all
like,
right, I deserve a drink.
this is what will happen next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much, because one of the reasons I love sharing that story is like just how I guess hopefully like encouraging and empowering that is for other people because one of the because like one of the biggest criticisms like non-Christians or non-believers, atheists, whatever, get when we're more like open and like vocal about like where we are and like specifically what our problems are with Christianity.
Hmm.
And people keep accusing us of like you're trying to like take away people's faith, which this is a whole other topic, but like I don't believe I actually have that kind of power. Like if the words I say convince you to not believe anymore, then all that means is you are responding to new information and changing your mind, which should be a good thing. But I'm not saying people need to be thanking me or anything. But if you want to, yeah, sure. But I mean, that's how growth is supposed to happen. Like you learn new information, and if it changes the way you view things, then so be it. Like you don't blame the person for expressing the thought. Yeah.
and if people are afraid that like you'll that yeah that will take away their faith, like, but faith is a gift from God, and but I mean, but we can take it away.
Yeah.
It's like it's like,
Once again, who's God
welcome,
now,
child.
bitches?
You found your new Lord and Savior. You're
Oh, I
like,
don't even.
I cannot do his shit. I think that means I win.
Once again, who's God now, bitches?
It's like, why are you so pissed? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
because well, here's one of the reasons they do get pissed, or at least get pissed at the idea. Because I've also had this conversation with several people where they say, "But I just don't think I could make it without my belief."
you're like, been
But this
there.
is what, yeah. But this is why, and I understand like that situation I went through is like I said, it was at the time like I was like pretty shaken. But I mean, obviously, like there are people going through much worse things and much worse problems in life, and them feeling like well, I cannot make it through this without God. But like my word of at least what I hope is encouragement to them or you, if you're listening or whoever, like when you tell me like well, I can't make it through this without God. So like don't try to tell me there is no God because I can't make it without him. But what I like to say to these people is okay, but look, okay, by whatever means, like you're making it through this, or you did make it through whatever that thing was in your past. So if you're saying, well, I can't make it through it without God, like, well, but if there is no God, then you did. That was you. And or whatever people, again, going back
Hmm.
to, the people in your life as a support and that like whether it was you or your community or whatever, it's like if there is no God, then you made it without God. And that's something that I think can and should be like incredibly like empowering for people. So that is one of the reasons I am like so vocal about this. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I realized how much stronger I was
Mm-hmm.
after, like after I lost my faith,
Oh, for
because
sure.
I
Mm-hmm.
realized like if I could get through that the way I did, which I guess it was at least barely good enough to get me through. Um,
Right.
and that's when I thought I couldn't. Then like how much all the stuff that I thought I couldn't tackle, like internally, uh, or in the world. Like, what happens if I try? Like what? Wait, that sounded insulting. What happens if I try, uh, knowing what I'm capable of?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. So I've had a lot of like personal, mental, emotional breakthroughs, since losing faith. Like my marriage is better. That's not supposed to happen.
What's better?
My marriage is better.
Oh, yeah.
This is like Aaron and I both, stopped believing. Where like it just yeah lost all the
Yeah.
things that you felt like you had to do, and then we were completely able to just say, what do we actually want to do? What really actually works? And
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that's a big deal instead of like trying to like
Yeah.
wait around for God to do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or
That's awesome.
believing that like you're dirt and you don't don't actually deserve anything. You don't actually deserve his help. So there's
Right.
an actual chance he could just stop doing anything for you ever again and will be completely justified.
Yeah.
But he
And that
won't
would be
because
pretty good.
you live in a first
Yeah.
world country and you are white and you get to believe that God will always do things that are in your best interest. You know why? You know
Yeah.
why? Because you've been doing things that are in your best interest.
Mm-hmm. And you have connections. Uh, yeah. All right. Well,
How did white people end up dominating so much? Like, we're clearly the most fragile.
it's like we've just become professionals at overcompensating, I guess.
Even our noses
So,
stick out further than, like, people in most other places of the world. Like, we're like, literally
yep.
easier to hit. Like,
I
how
mean,
the...
and and for people who know me in real life, like, have you seen me? Like, yeah, I am not like.
It's like I
Yeah.
lose fights to the sun routinely. Like,
Like literally, the sun almost fucking killed me. Like would have if apparently God had his way, but oh well. That's a whole other. Yeah, because something I want to talk about another time. We've touched on this several times. Is like how if sickness and illness, particularly in my case, like cancer, is supposed to be like natural consequences of sin and like the fallen world.
no, we're supposed to try to undo it.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. But okay, well, that's the consequences. But then when we come up with like medicine and stuff, we say, oh, well, that's like God is using medicine. It's like, why is God acting to negate the effects that He set up that were supposed to be natural consequences? So it's almost like in that way, like
But we
is
got to
like
spend all the time doing it.
yeah. Well, but in that way, is medical science like a form of rebellion?
Oh, Jehovah's Witnesses think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which
But
like
not all
people
medicine,
like
just
a
like
lot of Christian.
the
Yeah, because like a lot of
important.
Christians like to give them shit because they're like, oh, we can't use medicine because we're supposed to just have faith and pray. And it's like, and Christians like, well, that's ridiculous. But like, really, if Christianity is true, like that should be enough, right? But anyway,
I just realized
whole
why
other
Jehovah's
topic.
Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays because only Jesus is allowed to have birthdays. Like that's
Even though we don't actually know when it is, but yeah, uh,
I.
yeah. So yeah, all right.
The logic is
Well,
sound. I mean that's like you could actually argue that makes complete sense.
you could, yeah. All right. Well, so like I am at the literal end of my first drink. So anything else on the whole like prayer thing you wanted to touch on before moving on?
No,
All
it
right.
was
Yeah. So
super
I guess
enjoyable sometimes.
yeah. Yeah. So I guess in summation for me is like I said, like just that whole what I'm hoping is like the empowering message of like if there is no God, then that means you've made it this far without him. Whether like I said, whether it's on your own or usually it's like with the support of other people, because I mean,
What if you tell other
yeah,
people what they need to hear from their God?
mm,
Like whatever that is. Like whatever their highest ideal. You know what I mean, as best you can
yeah,
figure.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, I guess
that's an experiment to try, said
yeah,
the autistic person about human interaction.
because it's all an experiment, really. Um,
I was just like, oh
TBH.
my god, that was the really autistic thing to say. Like while I'm saying it, part of it, my inside voice is going, "Oh man."
Uh, yeah. But yeah, but I guess also to wrap up, say like clearly something's going on. Like I tend to think it's more just like whatever, like actual like natural human connection, or like you said, just there's things that people need to hear in certain situations, but for whatever reason, we've told ourselves that these things can only come from some kind of like higher power, deity, or whatever. But it's like no, like we can get that from each other. So I encourage, even entreat the to do so
Yeah,
and stuff. As I
and there
awkwardly reach for my second beer for the evening.
and there are probably other non-human beings that are above us
Ooh.
on the evolutionary food chain,
Hmm.
and and
Now,
like
now, do we want to dig more into that in second drink? Is that
yeah,
what we want to? All right. Well, let's. Well, all right. Well, let's get it kicking. So I'll go first with the second drink. So speaking of things I found at the store related to Sierra Nevada,
women.
so the
Oh,
I wish.
found
So
women at the store. Give it time.
well, apparently here in Cincinnati, anyway, like the Hyde Park Kroger is like one of the like singles hotspots for like meeting people. Apparently,
There's a lot of attractive
unfortunately,
singles that live like
yeah,
working like young professionals that live in that
hmm
area.
yeah, yeah. See, unfortunately, I go to the Kroger in Delhi, so so
Isn't it
there's a
spelled like Delhi in India, but like
yeah, yeah,
completely unrelated?
Delhi, yeah, but yeah. So if
Delhi.
there's so if there's any single ladies who like are over there, like you'll find you'll find me either by the beer or the little Debbie's, um, one of the two. But speaking of the beer aisle and things by Sierra Nevada that they still had their celebration ale.
That's a crime.
Yeah,
Who's letting that still be there?
it was on clearance, to be fair, but yeah, so like, well, I got to get that. So
No, I mean,
I did.
like, why didn't everybody buy that up?
It's Delhi. Like for people not familiar with like Cincinnati, it's like I imagine like the Miller High Life probably just flies off the shelves there. But
So when
yeah,
just when you think, if you're not from Cincinnati, if when you think of Cincinnati, okay, the west side of Cincinnati is 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 like 10x whatever you thought
right.
Cincinnati
Yeah, it
was.
is. Yeah, it is like the most Cincinnati that Cincinnati is. Yeah, pretty much.
It's yeah, it is like a parody of Cincinnati, but like up on the west side of the just the west side of the city.
Yeah.
And this is literally on the other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
That's actually like the dividing line between East and West Cincinnati in
hmm
downtown. And actually,
Yep.
for a while up Central too,
Oh
up
yeah.
Central Avenue.
Yep. Because it's very central. So
Oh,
no
that's
name to
oh
that.
man, I never realized that.
Hey, sometimes we know what we're doing around here. So yeah. So that's what I got for second drink. How about you, Matt?
Well, I have to go grab it, but it's another one of these. Another
Ah.
one of the seventh son oat brown ale called Stone Fort.
Mm. All right. Well, you go grab that. I'll be here. I guess. Just do a try to do our usual plug. Like again, once again, I'm noticing a trend recently that I'm actually kind of enjoying. Like our viewer count that we can see here. Like I said, again, we can't see who's watching, which is literally just a number, in case anyone's concerned. I mean, unless you comment, then obviously we know you're watching. So please do. So again, thank you to our maybe I'm assuming new viewer, Destroyer of Noobs.
I like the
I'm
name.
hoping I'm hoping we aren't noobs because I don't feel like being destroyed. Well, then again, like speaking of ladies who may want to meet me at Kroger, uh, um,
I like that your
what?
name and your graphic makes it look like the Christians are the noobs. It's like, haha, you're stage one of life.
If you're still watching, but anyway, like I said, like the trend we've had recently of like the viewer count hasn't been super high, but it's been super like consistent. Like the number I'm seeing on screen, like it's been pretty much like that number the whole night. So for whoever's watching out there, like again, we understand if people like are watching but don't necessarily like want to comment and make it public, like that they're watching, much less enjoying it. You
If
know,
you shame watch us, that's fine.
yeah. Or if you're like just here, just to like kind of stalk us and like see what we're up to and see what we're blaspheming now, and maybe if you're one of those friends of ours who were just so convinced that Matt was going to bring me back, and you're just waiting for that to happen.
It might be a new segment. What are we blaspheming now?
Ooh, I like that. I like that. We need to get Jimmy for that. I think he'd.
He is lit up.
hmm Yeah. Um,
I'm here for
let's
it.
see. Oh yeah.
He's
Faux.
feeling himself. Yeah,
What's that?
he's feeling himself.
hmm In all the best ways, but
It's
oh, but
me. I'm the big angry.
and here's why. But yeah, but speaking of being destroyed by attractive ladies, I finally beat Elden Ring uh, last week,
Is that
earlier
her
this
name?
week. Well, because it involved like, well, I guess actually after beating the game, because like you can still do more because it's like this whole open world thing, and so yeah, you can do things in whatever kind of whatever order. But anyway, after like officially beating the game, then I actually beat it on like the 1 month anniversary of when I got the game. So yeah, I won't tell you how many hours and how many days it was measured in that I was playing in that 1 month, but I did it. But for anyone who's familiar with Elden Ring, this one particular boss, Melania, like she's known as like one of the like hardest bosses that this like video game developer has like ever made, like across all their games. And their games are known for not just being difficult, but for, and some of them especially, having very difficult bosses. And this one was apparently like the worst. Well, I mean, it took me a while, but I did finally beat her. Like, at least in my experience, it wasn't the most difficult. But I will say, for anyone who's like into Elden Ring and is looking for ways to beat her, I'll say like two things that I had with me that I think really did the trick: the Mimic Tier Spirit Ashes and Mogwin's Spear, with like the weapon art or Ash of War or whatever it has with that. Yeah, that did the trick, especially because with the Mimic Tier, that was basically a copy. It's like basically a copy of yourself. So you have two of you with that weapon that does this like insanely powerful, like damaging thing, and you just keep doing that over and over again, and then she's just kind of gone, and it's great. But in the game, like, yeah, like, as far as like video game characters, easy on the eyes, uh, barely clothed, if that's the thing that
Aren't they usually?
yeah, well, in her first phase, she's got like all this armor, but then like her second phase, like she like grows wings and is basically just like wearing flower petals or whatever or something. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell because like she's also moves so fast and like just kind of like, if she's gonna like destroy you, it usually happens pretty quick.
Whoa.
So yeah. But yeah, but for my birthday, which was recently, I got myself the DLC Shadow of the Erdtree, so I started that recently, and that is like thoroughly kicking my ass so far. Because so the people who make these video games, like the name of the company is From Software. I don't know why, but anyway, and the evil genius behind them, Hidetaka Miyazaki. It's like even to access, it's like so like I've only played the only games of theirs I played are the Dark Souls trilogy and Elden Ring. They also do like Bloodborne, Sekiro, Demon Souls, but at least like the DLCs sometimes have like the most convoluted ways to actually access them. Because like for instance, like so for the original Dark Souls, they released a DLC for that. The way you had to access it was first, I mean, I guess you could do this in kind of any order, but you basically have to go to this one area, just like that's just so completely off the beaten path, and like defeat this like gigantic, like huge, very difficult to fight enemy, and then reload the area either by leaving and coming back or just like quitting out and saving, and then something way behind that you can't even see from where you're fighting the thing, you have to go like way behind where it was, and then there'll be just like a new enemy that shows up that you have to defeat, and apparently held within this enemy was this person that you rescued from it that was trapped inside of it, and you have to talk to, but then you have to go to this other place, completely different area, and find a similar looking enemy. But it's not like these are the only two enemies that look like this. There's like a bunch of these like throughout, but you have to find this one and defeat him, and then he'll drop like a medallion or something that you have to take all the way back to where this other lady was, but now she's not there anymore. Now it's this weird portal thing, and then it's one of those things like look it up on YouTube. Like there are all kinds of videos basically just asking how the fuck did people figure this out? Because I remember when I bought the DLC, I'm like, okay, where is it? Like I literally had to look up online how to actually access it. So, but like with Elden Ring, it's like it's not as convoluted and complicated, but in order to access it, you basically do have to fight and defeat two of the most difficult bosses in the game to even access it. So it's like
Wow.
now, to be fair, it's almost like that kind of makes sense because of how difficult the DLC itself is. So it's almost like if you can't handle these bosses, you're probably not even going to want to try. So, but yeah, I just love like how much like these developers like in the best ways they're just like to the to the players it's like, yeah, fuck you.
So do you pay for the
But
DLC?
yeah,
So you pay for it and they make it super impossible.
no, but the thing is, but then once you get it, I mean, okay, to let you know how good the DLC for Elden Ring is, like it's so big, it's almost its own game to the point where it was so for the video game awards that happened recently, just the DLC was actually nominated for Game of the Year.
Whoa.
So it didn't win, but yeah. Just the fact that it even made sense that it was nominated for Game of the Year. But yeah. So that's been what's taken over my life recently. And I'm cool with it. So
I gotta load up some screen time again.
Speaking of which, yeah. But yeah, so fun though. So fun. But
I've been playing No Man's Sky, and that is
I've heard good things. Yeah.
yeah. My son Owen just said that there was apparently like a big update where they added to the storyline, and it added like several new kinds of planets that the AI will generate, and
Yeah.
yeah. So that
Speaking of full frontal atheism, I'm getting a little warm. Right next.
that game is really meta. Like you're playing it. I don't want to spoil it. Let's just say there's a fractal kind of nature to the storyline that also involves you. And and I kind of think they're explaining how reality works with the game. Like I feel like whoever's behind this storyline, they're like, pretty sure I figured life out, and and
Ooh.
I
Yeah.
can't really teach it to anyone, but I can have them experience it. Like, you know what I mean? And kind of like,
Mm. Hmm.
and the reason why I recognized it is because it was something that like it's a line of thinking I was already on. And I'm like, I think this is probably how things are.
Mm.
um,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I'm like, holy shit, they're saying the same. Like the story is all like I'm already in this story. That was kind of wigging me out. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
was already in this story, like
Yeah.
before I
That's kind
started
of
playing the game.
yeah. That's kind of how I felt playing Hellblade. Like I found like
Hmm.
so many things about that like so relatable. But have you played that more recently or
No, it's been more complicated because Owen
yeah.
Owen's going to bed later and on his computer later. So we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to. I want to work something out where like maybe on the
Yeah.
weekend I can play for a couple hours. um,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah,
have
you
a
need
Mac and he has a PC.
yeah. Yeah, you need to finish that game so we can talk about it. Or
Yeah, it
but
was. It's gonna be crazy after having been to like the mental hospital,
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
that's gonna be kind of real. It already
Mm.
was real. It's like, oh, I can
Mhm.
relate, and they they made a mental illness that you didn't have kind of have it playing the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have
Mhm.
that experience of having
Yeah.
mental illness.
Yeah, so because like for the people who aren't familiar with it, like I mean, the main story of the game. I just loved this aspect of it. Is you're playing as a woman who's like an ancient uh, Pict, like one of the Pict tribe. Just if you're not familiar with them, just think okay, like Scottish people before Scotland was a thing, like whatever, like indigenous white people were there.
A
Um,
lot like the Irish are in the same period.
yeah, yeah. So, but it's basically like her, but it's like in the time of like Vikings. So it's basically like her village was like invaded by Vikings and they murdered her boyfriend, and she like was hearing stories from this guy she found in the woods that about who was a slave of the Vikings, and so he was telling her all about the mythology. So she's like, "Oh, if they killed him, then that means his soul's like in Helheim, or So she has to go. So basically, the game is you are going through Viking hell to like save her boyfriend's soul or whatever. But the twist is, the character you're playing at like has psychosis. Now, obviously, like back then they didn't know what to call it. So they called it things like the darkness and like. But the way they're portraying it, like first of all, is like you're hearing these voices from like three or four different people, like almost constantly. But like the way they recorded it, it's this technique called binaural.
Hmm.
So it basically like they literally had like the voice actors. They had the microphone set up, and basically like to mimic like a human head, like with the ears, like the way they work. So when they were recording the voices, like they literally had the voice actors like walking around this thing and like getting close, far away, like circling around it. So like that. So like play the game with headphones because like that's how you're
Yeah.
hearing it. Like and and also with like the part of psychosis about like
Oh, and
seeing
sometimes it
things.
feels like the voices go through your head.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
instead of
it
like
is.
going around the front, sometimes it would literally like in one ear and then the next out the other
Yeah,
ear.
yeah. The way, yeah, the. I mean, this is one of those games. Like, just the tech. I mean, the game itself is great, but just all like the technical aspects of it are just like astounding. Especially considering it's like it was an indie game, and you can buy it for like $30. But anyway, so there's that. But then there's also the part of the psychosis about like seeing things in the environment that like aren't really there, and like they really like played into that as well because like a lot of the puzzles are more about like finding like patterns or symbols and like things like in the environment. And but when they were making the game, they actually consulted with like professionals who worked with people with psychosis and actual people with psychosis. So like as they were developing the game, they were like having these people like watch what they were doing. They even like had the people play it, and they're like, yes, like you were like very well like capturing the experience as much as it's possible in a video game anyway, like what it's like. And so yeah, it's highly recommend Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. Now the sequel came out recently. Like without going into too much detail, I was kind of disappointed. Which again, technically, like absolute masterpiece. Like the game is like one of the best looking video games I've ever seen. But when it comes to the actual playing and experience, it just seems like there was just something about the first one that there's some magic about it that the second one
Yeah.
just didn't have. But
The Tomb Raider reboot.
mm,
I said so. There's the reboot started with an origin story. It was like a prequel,
mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
it's similar to what you're just describing with the first Hellblade, where they they put the people who made it put everything they had like of themselves like creatively in the first one, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's not a I wouldn't even really call it a video game. It's more like a story that you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, like there's little, like not really side quests, but it's a puzzle game too. So like there are elements to it, but like the character is really Laura Croft is really like a fleshed out character. Like you actually like give a shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, like about her as a person, but
Yeah.
she's not
Nice.
real. And so that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a bunch of pictures of the developers and the crew that made it at the end, and they were all big fans of the original franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when they were younger, and so they're like we want to do the character and the story justice. And so that's what the prequel was about. And then it ended up being profitable. People wanted that, and so they made sequels to it. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
the same kind of heart. It's that like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
that collective world that the developers and everybody who worked on it created. It's like this like you're connecting to the story that was in their heads,
Mm-hmm.
and also them at the same time, and
Mm.
then and that's magic. And then they try to like add to it, and
Yeah.
it almost feels like counterfeit.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like like the newer Star Wars movies. Like that's some it's like that's some B plus fan fiction. Good work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Star Wars, I didn't realize because I'm not a Dune person. I haven't read it or seen it yet.
Yeah.
Um, but apparently Star Wars is like Dune fan fiction,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've heard too. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so then when you make fan fiction of fan fiction, it doesn't work.
Then you get the New Testament. I mean, what?
The Mandalorian wasn't fan fiction of fan fiction. It was like what else is happening in that world of the original fan fiction.
Oh.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so that really worked. What they weren't trying to do anything weird and new that didn't make sense with what we already knew about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I guess so yeah, I want to get to another thing here. But yeah, but real quick, just I love talking video games, like especially like talking about like how meaningful they can be because like the way I like to put it, like video game therapy is a very real thing.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, speaking of like the the Dark Souls and like all those video games, like just go on YouTube and just search like Dark Souls saved my life, and you'll just get like so many videos pop up, like just how good like that stuff can be like for someone's mental health, like even just the aspect of like even people say, "Oh, it's just a video game," but like just the aspect of like achieving something, like especially something like that difficult, and realizing like, oh, it was scary, but I made it through it. Like just how like even just little things like that for a person,
Yeah,
you know,
and
again,
it
maybe
and it
going back
is
to our
all happening in your head, but then that can be helpful to kind of like realize that like everything else really is all just happening in my head.
yeah, and you can find different ways to like relate to certain aspects of it, and yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, because I remember like when I played Hellblade, I think that was yeah, that was like the following like winter, like I think January of like 2022. So like coming off of surviving cancer, becoming atheist, and like all that, and like it's one of those games like I don't want to give all the story away because it's one of those games like like Matt, like you were saying, this base like it's so much like you're playing a story. It's like and but like so much about the story, like it almost tracked like my journey, like pretty much like all the steps from like fundamentalism to deconstruction to atheism, like all the way through, like it all hit and then the whole like, well, what the fuck now? Even like all that. So yeah. So for all those like haters out there, don't discount the video games.
Hmm.
It's good shit.
Especially indie stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. And also speaking of the Dark Souls series, like Dark Souls 3 is probably well, it is still like my absolute favorite of the series because almost like because that one, for anyone's familiar with the story, is like the first one kind of has that feeling like, oh, I'm like a chosen one. I'm going out on an adventure, and like the second one is like, oh, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, see what's really going on. But the third, by the time you get to the third one, it's all let's just fuck everything. Can we just all die now? Just end everything. It's yeah. I guess the nihilism in me kind of is more attracted to that one, but because
I,
basically what from what I understand, like Miyazaki, the developer, like with Dark Souls 3, it was almost like that was like his way of saying, like, look, I don't want to make any more Dark Souls games. People keep asking me for it, like, can we just finish this, please? But that's also like what's actually happening in the story. It's like everything just needs to end. But yeah, anyway.
I just
But
figured out what a good way to describe No Man's Sky
ooh,
is. So the character that you're playing in the game is having your experience.
mm,
Like
that's a cool effect.
you're not playing a game, like they're having your experience while you play it. Um,
Huh. Mm.
the story has a self awareness to it that is,
I love that.
and the whole universe is generated by the AI of the software.
Hmm.
It wants, and it's not generated until somebody goes there. Um, and once somebody goes there, now that is permanently discovered, like for the rest of the community. And the
Uh-huh.
planets that you discover in it, it says like when you scan them, it says that like that's something that you has your player name. Mine is target practice. um, man, I think Aaron did fall asleep. So like he's not getting his medicine apparently, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, characters having your experience.
Yeah. That's a cool thing when video games can pull that off. Yeah.
And that's kind of how it like opens up your mind to some stuff. But I really think like if somebody is going at it like as a Christian, I think they wouldn't catch it. Um,
Yeah.
it's one of those things
I
where like
mean,
I don't think you would see it unless you're there, like you're like ready to see it.
Yeah, because that's something I realize, and I don't think you really can fully realize about Christianity or really anything like until you're out of it. It's like just realizing how limiting, like mentally, and in so many other ways too. But
Self
yeah, just
reinforcing. Like it's
yeah.
the more fundamentalist you get with it, the more self reinforcing it is, and the harder it gets to actually see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more
Well, yeah, because
it gets
when
more
you convince
filtered
your
through your stuff.
yeah, and because it's when you convince yourself that you already have the story, you already have everything figured out. Well, there's nothing else to figure out, so you're not.
You found something to be
Yeah.
certain about.
hmm Which I mean, that's a very human thing. It's something we all want. So I mean, I get it obviously because I mean I was there for like 35 years.
But there's literally
Uh,
no such thing as
yeah.
certainty. Like there's nothing that stays the same.
Are you certain about that? Sorry.
Well, there's one thing that's certain. Existence is a
I'm
thing.
yeah.
Things
I'm just
exist, whatever that
yeah
means. So
yeah.
that's
Sorry,
something we can.
I was just being a dick slash a Frank Turek. Um, because like 'cause I was thinking about
He's
like
a human garment hanger.
but because I was thinking about like because one something that like a lot of apologists like say like when because first of all they'll just say oh non-Christians they don't believe in absolute truth so then just ask them well is that true like total straw man argument but also like
You're like,
taking
apparently depends on your perspective. Almost like things that are true don't really exist.
right yeah it's really more they're just taking advantage of like a limitation in language because like okay so say like
Well, they're playing to their strength, limitation.
fair enough.
It's like ninja with it. Wow. You used the word two different ways. What now?
Because like one thing that I've been thinking about recently is like the idea of like I really don't think there are any like hard and fast like absolutely true principles. But then you say, well, but then it's like, well accept that, you know. But the thing is like, because what if it were actually the case that that like nothing actually was absolutely true? Like, how would you like supposed to how are you supposed to be able to express that like except by saying nothing is absolutely true except the statement that nothing is absolutely true, you know, like it could still be the case but just
Whoa. The snake eating his tail right there.
yeah a little Ouroboros action.
Yeah.
um but so like but apologists will like kind of like pounce on that but it's like no it's just like okay but if that is the case then how am I supposed to express that in ways that you aren't going to like try to take advantage of.
But then
Yeah.
he, in response to that thing of like, oh, so you're saying something can be ultimately true, and then you say, like, you go, look, just if I say some things can be ultimately true, that doesn't mean yours is.
Right. Yeah.
Like I don't. It's like he's like you don't win. If I think
Okay.
that like some things are certain, like you know what I mean.
Okay. So here's okay. So kind of related to that. So here's an illustration that I came up with today, like for an issue that I've been like trying to like work out in my mind, like how to really express like where I'm at. So I think this is like a topic we've discussed before, like with the whole like kind of like naturalism versus like supernaturalism like views where it almost seems like the supernatural crowd will kind of want to latch onto the whole like oh we've realized that like our version of like reality isn't actually what we think it is and like everything's like a construct in the mind and like nothing we think is real really is real in any real sense whatever real means but it's almost like they'll try to like, oh, so that means you can't say that there is no God because your picture of reality isn't like accurate anyway. So how do you know? But it's like,
It doesn't mean
okay,
it's
but
your
but
God.
yeah, right. Because the way I try to think of it is okay, but within that construct of whatever we do, like whatever we can in any real sense or unreal sense, whatever the case may be, have any kind of picture of what reality is or may be like. It's like it's
We only know what
my brain
reality
keeps.
is like as filtered through a person.
Mhm. Yeah, so the analogy that I try to think, so it's almost like they try to say like, okay, so we can't fully understand what reality really is, so that means it leaves room for what I think is really going on. But it's like, but the way I
True.
try to approach it, but the way I try to approach is okay, like, but whatever version of reality we have, I'm trying to play by whatever those rules are,
Hmm.
whether or not however accurate those rules are, those are the rules we have. So the analogy I came up with today is um, the example of like when you're talking about like fantasy, like literature, and how like even though it's fantasy, so like everything is clearly not real, but there are still rules. So
Hmm.
it's like if in like so take like Lord of the Rings. So say like in the middle of the second book, like Two Towers, like all of a sudden like Frodo can just fly, like he just starts flying and someone says, "Wait, that doesn't make sense. Hobbits don't fly." But then someone else comes in and is like, "Well, it's fantasy. Like hobbits don't even exist anyway. There are no elves. So why are you complaining about this? None
The
of it's
story
even
gets
real." It's like,
self-aware.
okay, but there's still like an internal logic and like consistency that should be there, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like one of the closest things I can
It's like
think
there's
of.
a
Like
different story happening on top of this one right now.
yeah, so it's like yes, it's recognized. Okay, yes, this is fantasy, but within this particular fantasy, like there are still rules. It's not like you can say, well, just because it's fantasy, I can insert whatever I want. So does that make sense? Like, does
Yeah.
that sound like it works for that as an analogy? Okay,
Uh-huh. Also,
so
if anybody enjoys that, like finding the inconsistencies in something, there's a show called Night Agent on Netflix. It's fun. Okay? Formulaic as hell. Uh Comically so in the second season. And the
hmm,
internal consistencies where you're like, wait, that's not what people would do in that situation. And like they literally wouldn't. What they just said is not a normal thing for people to say, and you're like, that character is acting like they're like a different personality of the same character from before. Uh, like also that's just it's one of those law enforcement slash spy shows, and so like there's like elements of the both those kind of stories in it.
hmm,
Um, you're like, but when I can catch really bad tactics, just
yeah,
from watching veterans on YouTube talk about stuff,
hmm,
like
hmm,
uh, like a veteran on YouTube talking about the Ukraine war and things like that. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, I just, or in one scene they do something where you're like, oh, that's a real thing people do, and then next scene you're like, that is not what that person would do if they were able to do the other thing.
right, yeah. Now, would it be rude of me to interrupt you to remind you of another thing you said you wanted to talk about, but we haven't gotten to yet?
Okay,
So we had
my brain
originally
does that
set up.
all the time. So you should do it too.
Yeah. So well, good. I want to be like your brain. That's all I've ever wanted, but I didn't know
Weird.
until now. I know, right? Um, Now we had set up the whole like second drink. Now that we're like almost an hour into it, is like you talking more about these like maybe alien, maybe not, whatever other kinds of thing. Now, was that something you still wanted to like dig into more and go into at this point, or?
Sure, just a teensy bit.
Okay, yeah. And now, full disclosure, like pretty much everything I know about this topic is like from Matt, so
all
I'm
right, so
probably just going to be listening and drinking during this whole thing with like probably little to no input. But cool.
so there's this reporter named Ross Coulthart. He's from Australia, and that's just like that's a really Australian reporter name, Ross
Yeah.
Coulthart.
And really, if there was anyone on Earth who was going to be talking about like possible like paranormal extraterrestrial type stuff, it makes sense that it's coming from Australia. But yeah.
Well, he has a gig from with News Nation, which is a up and coming cable news channel. Very very center, sometimes right of center, but like they have really good news reporting. Um, and so he has a gig with them talking about UAP stuff with former. Just got spooky. My lights turned off. Echo.
Told you.
Lights on.
They know.
It happens at different times, and I swear, sometimes I wonder if like my dad is messing with our shit. Either that,
Oh.
or either that, or all of our Echo devices are acting strange. Um, Turning lights off and on whenever they feel like it, and like, and it even went through an update, right? Like we got an update and it didn't go away, so that's weird. And so I say
Hmm.
some leftist things sometimes, out loud, and I'm kind of wondering like if did I trigger enough keyword issues that like I'm monitored now?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I say some things as well, but I get like here, like we have like Philips, like they're like smart light stuff. I guess maybe they don't care, or but yeah.
So, yeah, so he's doing great reporting, and so if anybody just like wants to know more about what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
watch his
What's his What's his name again?
Ross Coulthart.
Ross
Just look up,
Coulthart.
yeah,
Okay.
like News Nation Ross, like
Okay.
Ross UAP. It'll probably show up. He's been doing a lot of a series. He's been releasing a series of interviews with whistleblowers about the UAP stuff in the government, but these are
Hmm.
firsthand witnesses to things. Everybody who's come out and done hearings in Congress previously was um, people with enough clearance and need to know that they came across these things, and so they're not like firsthand account
Hmm.
people. They're
Yeah.
They became aware that there's like records about these things happening, and then they
Hmm.
had started talking to people who had like, it's just what I see on paper. It's fucking true, and uh,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And there was a guy who came out recently talking about like um, he recovered an egg shaped craft, had like a psychic, super emotional connection with another craft that,
Hmm.
and it's like the dude met God, like how much it impacted him.
Hmm.
Like it was that kind of experience, but like better than any time I felt like I met God. I'm like, I didn't have that happen.
Man,
um,
God's holding out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like psychic connection stuff going on, and you can. This sounds nuts, all right, but like, it's been demonstrated. People are able to use like meditative like state connections with these kind of automated craft. They don't have pilots in them, and they can like draw their attention. And you might be thinking, oh, it's somebody controlling a little craft up there, but then these craft do things. You know what I mean? Like this is a hoax. They did a thing. They have a guy, and he's flying it in, going buzz buzz with the thing, and but they're not making any sound. and they're doing things that like physics as we know it don't let us do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you like darting tens of miles across the sky in a second, and but not going blip blip from one place to another. It's like it goes zip, and you see it go there.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, but they're gonna attract one of these things. They have a startup. They're gonna start attracting these things and doing what basically the government and Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman probably. Those are probably the two companies, big ones. There's other ones like attracting
Hmm.
the craft and then reverse engineering them. But this will be civilians doing it because these people used to be involved in similar things in the government and for these other companies, but now they're going to be doing it independently in a startup. Um,
Hmm.
and they're like, fine, if you won't disclose the truth and the science, like they're withholding science from the world. Like it's not, it's like knowledge of things that are actually happening. Like that there's um, a handful of different like non-human intelligence species that like they've been interacting with or have had some contact with, and the reverse engineering craft is now a fact. Like that's been established in um, congressional hearings. Um, and what you hear this guy Jacob Barber talk about retrieving that craft and having that experience with the connection, it was like a real religious experience, and um, everything he's saying, like that and more, has he given evidence to Congress about in closed door things in a skiff. So like we're getting the civilian version of what he's already told like people with top secret clearance in congressional behind closed doors things.
Hmm.
Um, so this is wacky shit that sounds like it's in like an old like 80s 90s like sci-fi story or like UFO cover up like big
Mm-hmm.
picture book thing.
Right.
But no, it like actually happened in Congress, and like Nancy Mace led a hearing, and like I've like
Mm-hmm.
followed the guys who were at the hearing previously and everything they've shared, and like this is all really happening, and like truth is stranger than fiction. like
Tends to be.
what's like we wouldn't believe it if we wrote it as fiction. It'd be like, no, that's not believable.
Yeah. Hmm.
just
Yeah. I mean,
just imagine all the layers of things that are going on in our country, in the world, in our neighborhoods, like all that layer of complexity on our planet. Now imagine that like fractaled out for every other like more intelligent species or more advanced species that's out there. So we're another animal in the jungle to them. Like that's
yeah.
like
Hmm.
dogs potentially in some ways to them, where they like you don't always do nice things for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Not every dog anyway.
Right. Right. Hmm.
There's a lot of I didn't realize I thought of myself as being the top of the food chain, just like boop, like permanently. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like humans,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are
Yeah. I was just
here, but
Yeah, I was just thinking about recently, like, because I fall into that, like, what's apparently like kind of a neurodivergent trope. It's like, yeah, sometimes I just forget to eat. And it's like
oh,
the
I
way
hear
I
that.
like to put it. The way I like to put it is like, it's like, man, I am like so far up the food chain. Sometimes I just forget that the rest of it even exists. It's like so wherever Pop Tarts fall on that, I even forget to eat those. But yeah,
I just realized. Oh, this is kind of creepy. Like
ooh,
whoever's abducting humans, and that's actually happening. Like that's also a thing Congress is looking into. Um, It's nuts how the regular media does not report on this stuff. Like the cable news channels, other than News Nation, nobody's reporting on it. It's almost like they'd like, it's like shit. If we report on it, that means it's true. I mean, it is true, but I don't want to think it's true.
Mm.
um,
Yeah,
they
fair enough.
abduct, they like mutilate and abduct cows. They mutilate and abduct people. Um, People and cows are kind of in the same category in this scenario to them.
Mm.
That's fucked up. People, cows,
Well,
whatever.
I mean, from our perspective, sure, but I mean, but like from our perspective, it's like cows, chickens, pigs.
I mean,
We do the same thing. So
they don't like magically surgically remove our colons and our genitals like they do with the cows. It's really confusing. I mean, it's gonna blow my mind whenever we find out what they're doing with that. Like that can't
I
be a
would imagine
comfortable
so.
that can't be a
Yeah.
comfortable explanation to hear.
Yes, comfort is out the window at that point for sure.
It's
Whatever
like
it is. Yeah.
so they drained all the blood out of the cow without collapsing the veins, sort of just beamed it out. And then and then they like beamed out the butthole and the dick. like cool.
Uh, yeah.
Like,
No.
is there just like a vat of a dick and an asshole and a bunch of blood? Like, what kind of. What the fuck?
Uh, yeah.
What exactly
The
is your
actual.
aim?
Yeah. No. And full disclosure, and I mentioned this to Matt. Like, this is something like I've said, like literally all I know about all of this is like what Matt has told me. And I did watch like the hearing that happened recently in Congress, like with Lou Elizondo and like a
Yeah, you
couple other
almost had to
people.
know more about from behind the scenes to find
Yeah.
out what parts were.
So,
It
so
was
I'll
mostly
admit, like,
boring. I agree.
yeah, no, no. I mean, I didn't really find it boring. Like,
Oh,
cause like
okay.
I said, it was like just maybe it's just because like I haven't looked into this stuff as much as you have. So maybe like for you that wasn't new, but like for me, it's like, oh, this is all new information for me, other than what I've heard from you. Um, but yeah, like and like I've told Matt, this is one of those things. Like, it's not that I like disbelieve it. It's just like with all the other things like already like going on in my brain, it's just like yes, if this is all true, I am absolutely interested. I'll just wait here till y'all got it figured out, and you can like give it to me in like a pamphlet or something. But yeah,
That's not going to happen. It's going to be more of like a continuous unraveling kind of thing.
well, yeah, well, whatever medium works best
But
for
it's also one of
whoever.
those things because it is like an
Yeah,
expanded view of reality, and it's. I feel like it's one of those things where this is gonna sound weird, but
cool.
even though it's real, it's also a lot to process and handle
Hmm.
because I didn't realize how much it fucks with your worldview a lot. Like in ways that you
Yeah.
didn't know your worldview was specific to being human. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, I think people should look into it as they're comfortable and interested. Um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's one of those things. Like I said, I don't really have any like at least that I can't recognize like any um sort of like predispositions I would have to like not wanting any of this to be true. I mean, and also like quite honestly, it might just be like the baggage that I still have from coming off of
yeah.
believing believing that something is true for like the vast majority of my life, and then finding out that it wasn't. So maybe I'm still like a little they
Well,
would call it
see,
like gun shy or whatever. Like I said, it's
it is
like
kind of
it's
like that. It like
yeah, yeah, so maybe I'm just like a little more wary of like as as much as like I generally like do trust you, and I'm certainly not like under no impression or whatever that you're lying or making this shit up or whatever. Like I
Yeah.
said, but it's and I'm sure you understand this. I've explained this to you. It's like I don't ever want to just no matter what it is, I don't ever want to believe something just because one person told me and then okay, that's true now. But like
Yeah.
I said, but it's not that I'm wanting to deny it. Like I said, it's as soon as it just sounds like in order to learn enough about it to really form an informed opinion on it,
Hmm.
it's just honestly just literally is going to take more brain power than I have for life right now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like it.
yeah.
There are like some yeah. There's some YouTube places to follow, but they're
Well, I
at
guess
this
for people
at
who
this
are
point, like
interested,
you'd have to have like an interest in it anyway in order to follow it, and
yeah.
so like it makes
So I
sense to
guess
wait for milestones.
yeah. So for people who are interested, because you've mentioned some of your sources, but for anyone who does want to learn more about what are some places you would recommend that
Luis
people look into?
Elizondo has
Hmm.
he has a podcast on YouTube now where he gives updates about how things are proceeding, or kind of
What's it called?
you can just look up Luis Elizondo on YouTube, and
Okay.
I think it's just, I don't know, it's something a little boomer. I can't remember what it was, but it was like Luis Elizondo updates or something.
Yeah. Uh huh.
uh, that
Okay.
alarm's not supposed to go off right now.
Mm.
Area 52
Ooh.
uh, channel on YouTube done by apparently a well-known magician. I've never heard of him, but he
Huh.
also has had
That's how good he is.
yeah, Canadian magician. Apparently, I don't know, did a bunch of cruise ships or something.
It's like you didn't even know he was there.
But he tells, he's a great storyteller, because being a professional
Mm.
magician, he know with talking and
Yeah.
stuff, knows how to hold your
Mm.
attention.
Yeah, that's
Um,
key. Yeah.
doing some in depth background stuff on some things. The production style is a really good 90s um, Discovery Channel show, or 2000s, early 2000s too.
Okay.
Back when they were doing I had those weekly shows or daily shows, and it was informative and fun. It kept your attention, and it wasn't some shit
Yeah. Which reminds me
Uh,
of one of my favorite jokes from the pilot of the show Community when Jeff was talking about humans is humans we have Shark Week. Sharks don't even celebrate Shark Week. That's just something we do. Anyway, yeah.
Man, they have just a vacant look. Have you seen a shark at the zoo?
I don't think
They,
so.
they swim past the glass,
Do we have
and
those?
yeah, they
Oh
do.
yeah, I've seen them at aquariums and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're just like, "Oh my god, you're dead inside." I
Yeah.
mean, all fish look like that, but there's something about something that dangerous that is not at home. like,
Yeah, this literally gives zero fucks about. Yeah.
and is so hardcore. If they stop swimming, they can't breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah. So if any so yeah. Thanks for giving all those recommendations for people to
Oh,
look into.
two other
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. If you have any more. Yeah.
Post Disclosure World.
Mm.
Pretty sure the guy who hosts that is autistic as hell. Um, his, but he's all him. And there are moments when you're like, that was weird. I kind of liked it, but
Yeah. Can relate. Yeah.
um, and that UFO podcast is extremely thorough. I can't keep up with it.
Mm.
uh, and that's probably enough to get the algorithm going. Hey, have you seen?
Well, hey, I'm I'm appreciative. Like our viewer count has like remained consistent through all this, so thanks for sticking it out. But yeah, like I said, like with this topic, it's yeah, obviously like if all this stuff is true, like yes, I am very interested in that. But like I said, it's just with like life and everything recently, it's just like with all the other things like I'm already interested in and like spending like energy toward. This is just one of those things where I've just kind of put in the category of all right, just let me know when y'all got it figured out and you can give me a presentation of what's going on and then cool. But until then,
Well,
I'll be yeah.
uh, well then there's a on the shoulder side documentary about UFOs that came out at the end of last year. That is a decent summation of current, like recent and current developments.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
program
and
is what it's called.
program. Yeah. Yeah, cuz again like I've told you before like cuz I know this is something like you're like super interested in. It's like because like I kind of so sometimes I honestly kind of feel bad because like I know this is something that like you're super interested in like want to talk about a lot and it's not that I don't want to hear it but I just feel like when you talk to me about it I'm just like I feel like I just don't really have much in the way of any kind of like response. So,
Yeah, same way for me in football.
well, good. Okay, cool. Good to know.
Like, just let me know when the Super Bowl's over and who won.
Yeah. Well, honestly, this year it's like,
It's boring. It's a repeat.
yeah,
It's a
it's. I mean,
do
for
over.
me, it's really just more that it's the Chiefs again. Like, I don't really have any like strong feelings about the Eagles. Like, they're fine, but like, yeah, but like with yeah. Don't get me started on the Chiefs though. But
Made name's a little racist.
a little bit not as bad as like the Washington former football team
Sure.
name.
Yeah.
But
No. Chiefs is yeah. I yeah definitely.
yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's
Kind of
yeah,
depends which Native American you are. Not all of them are
yeah.
bothered
But
by
like,
it.
what gets me is like it's like them and like pretty much like any sports team that has anything like Native American theme, whether it's like the Atlanta Braves or like the Florida State Seminoles, like they all at their football games do that like cheer like oh. It's like, but I got to think like as like if you like as an actual Native American, are they like is this just what you think of our culture that like that we all do this? Is this, like this
Also,
is our music or
that melody was
yeah.
I think was made up by white people when they wrote a western
Oh, probably. Yeah.
because the drum beat to that
Hmm.
is not a native drum rhythm. Native drum rhythms are steady beats to mimic a heartbeat.
Hmm.
Um, it's basically like a house music beat. It's just a four on the floor beat.
Hmm.
um,
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, so my brain and my bladder are both about to give out. So, but yeah, yeah. So thanks everybody who's been watching tonight. Like I said, like it's been a low but steady viewer count tonight, which I appreciate the hell out of. Appreciate the interaction we got from new viewer, Destroyer of Noobs. They're on YouTube. It's good to know that people are still watching us on YouTube. It seems like most of our interaction is on Facebook, but also
yeah.
like we still are on Twitch. Like, but here's the thing: like, I still don't really understand like Twitch and like how it works. So if anyone out there knows, so like I know we are actually streaming on Twitch, but like when I go back to our page and try to see our videos, it's like I can't find them anywhere. So I don't know if it's like if you catch it live, that's it. But if not, then it's gone forever. I don't know
Oh, that's
because I know
awesome.
like I've with other people I followed on Twitch, like I've been able to view their live streams later. So
Maybe
I
there's
don't
a
know.
setting
There could be like I'd look throughout like at least the app, try to figure it out. So,
because there's
but
somebody I
I
watch
don't
on
know.
Wednesday where it's like a bonus episode and you can if you catch it live for free, you can watch it. But then after the live streaming is done, the only place you can find it is on the Patreon page.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, that's a
Do we
neat
have a?
trick.
It's like, do we have a Patreon page I don't know about that it's going to? Probably not, but so yeah, but either way, like you can still like watch it on YouTube, Facebook. I know, but
Also,
yeah,
I'm kind of wondering, like, okay, so Mark Zuckerberg is basically one of the oligarchs now,
yeah,
and I'm seeing a lot more posts from um, people on the left than I ever did before. So I'm thinking they
hmm.
turned a filter off, like they were kind of like hiding or decreasing things from the left before, and the fact that it's not being hidden anymore kind of concerns me because it seems like a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you let them all talk, if you let all the people see on the left see people, other people, things other people are saying about a thing that maybe they weren't showing you before. Now people will communicate more about those topics and say more things. Um, but Facebook is inclined to share political information with the Trump administration
Mm.
because now they have like an arrangement.
Yep.
So I think people need to be careful what they say on Facebook because you're being tracked by an adversary now. Um,
Oh, good thing we're streaming there right now.
yeah.
So,
So
well,
people will
cool.
get like, anybody that says anything close to sounding violent against a politician, um, I don't know, people might start getting visits at some point.
Yeah,
Because if you say
and,
anything
and
about the president, like publicly, uh, anything that sounds like you want to do something, it would not be weird for the Secret Service to have a chat with you.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And for the record, not just for that, but like, we do not advocate any kind of like political violence.
No, I didn't. Oh, I wasn't trying to imply
Yeah.
that at all. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Like I said, that's not just for the, like this, like, for you, the audience, like, just so you know where we're at on that.
because guess what happens
Yeah.
if there's violence? The more violent party wins, and so
Yep.
all
And
that
if they're the more
and
violent party, the violence ain't going to stop.
right, you've just made it
So,
worse.
hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and the American Revolution was a little weird, like because usually when revolutions happen, it's a more militant version that replaces it.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, and I guess in America, it turns out it was. We just took a long time to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It was a slower burn. Yeah. Anyway. All right.
We were
Well,
convinced we were great people the whole time. Maybe that's what slowed it down.
mm,
It's like, oh,
no,
I want to go. If
no,
we
it
can,
was really because this was a Christian nation, and that's what did it.
yay!
Anyway, on that note, all right. Well, yeah. So,
We got our former government from Native Americans, and then ruined it.
like
Hundreds
we
of
do with
years
so many
working
things.
fine for them, and then we're like, you know what? We can make it better. Uh,
Spoiler alert: no, we can't. Um,
no, just made it worse.
sorry. Yeah. All right. So yeah. Thanks again, everybody. Like again, who was watching. Like for those who feel comfortable, please share our videos, whether it's publicly or if you just like know someone who's like, hey, I think you might dig this. Feel free to share it with them. Like, comment, subscribe, or wherever applicable. Yeah, we just like to know that people are out there enjoying this, in whatever way you feel comfortable expressing that. Yeah, so I think this will be our last show for January, and like I said, we're trying to keep a little more like I don't know what you want to call it, like pattern or whatever. We're trying to mix in more doing like video, try to keep more regular things like doing like some video reactions. Hopefully soon getting some more guests back on. We got a couple people like in mind lined up. Again, don't want to make any announcements yet, mostly because I keep forgetting to actually reach out to people, but there's nothing exactly to announce yet. But I'm sure like more will come on that front. But yeah, so I don't know. Like this may be a little premature, but what do you say? Like next week, you know, maybe do some more like video reactions if we don't think of any like another like.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We'll have to decide what kind.
hmm yeah, and we'll see if we want to keep up with the whole like one of us like going in blind. Some of these, like I think that's been fun.
Yeah.
Where like one of us picks out some videos that the other hasn't seen yet, and just kind of see how they react to it. Yeah, but yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
Okay.
So, but yeah, thanks again, everyone. Again, like, seems like some people were like sticking it out through pretty much the whole thing. So yeah, we appreciate you. Thanks to who was it? We make Destroyer
Destroyer
of
of noobs.
Noobs. Yeah, sounds intense. I kind of like it. Yeah, thanks for hanging out for at least however briefly you did. Just to make sure we were actually
Just check
atheists
in,
or
y'all
whatever.
atheists. Cool. See ya.
Yeah, it's running surveillance or whatever you're doing. Cool, whatever. All right. But yeah, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. We'll be back here next week. Matt, take us
May
out.
things and stuff be forever with your people.
Forever and ever, or however long. I don't give a fuck. See you next week.